Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trek Before. Yeah, we made it, guys. We made it. I made it. You made it. We all made it. Ice cream. No, it's the Caretaker. It's the pilot episode of Voyager. We're here. We know a lot of you love it, and so hopefully that's why you're here. So come along with us on this voyage, if I may. The Caretaker on It's All Been Trek Before. Hey, take care of us. We love that you listen. We love that maybe you watch. Maybe you do want to. If you're not watching, maybe you want to. Then you can really take care of us or tell us, hey, take care of yourself because you get the video. Become a Patreon member, patreon.com/IABD. Get all the bonus stuff. Get all the video, get all the content earlier. And yeah, it's easy. And it's very inexpensive. Just like It's All Been Trek Before. And here we're talking The Caretaker. We made it, Voyager, on It's All Been Trek Before. Welcome out to another episode of It's Been Trekked Before. Your regular hosts are here.
This is Steven.
And Keith.
Jimmy-Jerome. And we have a slew of guests for this very special episode. Returning guest.
Hi, I'm Sean.
Sean, who's been with us for All Good Things most recently. At Star Trek 6. And we also have...
Shane!
Shane! Yeah. I recognize your voice.
Yeah, I've been on it once or twice.
You have. You did Encounter at Farpoint, did you not?
That is correct,
My God, I forgot
And a
about
Lost Six episode.
Jeez. That was 100 years ago.
And we have one more guest who used to be on all the time, but it was just baby babbles. What's your name?
Zoey.
Zoey is now 7 years old, and she loves Captain Janeway and Star Trek Prodigy. So she wanted to see what real Janeway was on screen, so I said she could give her thoughts.
I love that sounded like somebody doing a bit. Like that would
No, it is my actual 7-year-old daughter. And if you listen to this podcast the whole time, you'll remember the baby babbles.
He's been committed to this bit for 7 years.
I know, right? Pretty impressive. So we're here to talk, obviously, the pilot of Voyager called Caretaker. First impressions. Let's just go around. Start with Keith and go around.
What do I have here?
There's a lot of us.
I guess I won't go into the actual notes about the cold open and stuff. But it's I know that the first time through I was watching it, I didn't really have the same kind of perspective on the Maquis as I did this time from actually watching a DS9
And Next Gen.
Yeah. As they're mentioning it, because it was always a crapshoot back then as far as watching it live. It's just like I see what I did in the right order or whatever. So it was much different as far as that goes. But I was also surprised at how much I'd already forgotten as far as like, oh yeah, that character. This is going to come in. So I'm excited about that.
I think what always strikes me about Caretaker among all the different pilots is just how much heavy lifting it has to do to get the premise to where it is at the end of the episode.
Oh.
You don't have you do have your normal Starfleet crew, but then you got to introduce the Maquis characters. You got like 8 credited cast members who need to have their personalities established. You got to get us to the Delta Quadrant, justify why we can't get back, introduce the new big bad Kazon. And I'd say it's about 50-50 on which of those actually pay out.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, but so far I enjoyed it. We'll, obviously, as always, we'll get deeper into it. But yeah, I had the same thought. I was like, man, there is a lot. And there's the usual kind of, I am doing exposition, as we kind of joked at the end. Janeway's kind of like, this is what this series is about for the next however many years they let us do it. But
75.
Yeah, and for a while in this episode, I'm like, where are we going? And I don't even know.
To the Alpha Quadrant.
Well, I don't even know if it's in a bad way of like, where there's all these disparate elements, and they finally brought them all together. But for a while, I'm like, what the? I mean, and the underneath is still an old TOS plot of, there's a super
higher
being computer.
The Caretaker's just Landru.
Yeah, that's exactly what I went to write that down. I'm like, yeah, and that's what I thought. I was like, it's gonna be a supercomputer that they're gonna outwit, and kind of. But yeah, it's ended up being, and I don't. And again, I'm not saying that necessarily in a bad way either. Just I like maybe that was their own little just a little tip of the hat cap to TOS. I like the array of characters and everything, and we'll get deeper into it. Obviously, that's what we do.
Yeah, I really enjoy. I mean, Voyager's my favorite series, so I've been waiting 7 years for this, and we're finally here.
8 years.
8 years. That's right.
Yeah.
But no, it's I loved it. It's definitely feels more like a Star Trek pilot than Next Gen's pilot did. That's for sure. That, in my opinion, look, I'm not saying it's better. I'm saying it felt more like a Star Trek episode because there wasn't. Yes, there was a being that was all powerful in some ways, but also just it was a little more grounded than Anyway, but I think they did a really good job setting up the premise of the series. Now, I've not seen Deep Space Nine or
What?
So I don't know anything that's going on with the Maquis, but there's that little scroll at the beginning that tells you everything you need to know, right? I mean, they exist, and here we go.
That was the saddest, shortest little Sparks crawl, and I have many Star Wars references to get into, but whatever. Whenever there's a crawl.
I definitely
That was one of
There
my
were
first
crawls
notes.
before Star Wars, obviously, but this one was very like, we're just giving you what you need, and on.
I
Which is
definitely want
fine,
to talk. Do I definitely want to talk about the crawl specifically? Well, first impression, though, my was no. A typical Star Trek pilot is bad, Shane. So the fact that it was good and set up characters make it different. Not your typical Star Trek pilot.
Okay, that's
you
right.
just don't have the breadth of experience of Star Trek pilots to understand. We expect
Right.
a crappy first episode. I mean, and all joking aside, the original series had a good pilot.
Yeah.
But Next Gen pilot was awful, and Deep Space Nine pilot was better than I remembered it being, but still not as strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was, I think, a pretty strong pilot. I liked it a lot more than I remembered. I had not been looking forward to watching it, mainly because I think I had mentioned I recorded like the first 4 or 5 episodes of the series on VHS, and I watched them over and over again when I was younger because I didn't have all the episodes, and I got a bit burnt out on them. And so I was kind of sick of Caretaker for a while, but then I watched it for the first time in 20 years, and I was like, oh, this is really good. And I also watched it earlier this week with my daughter because I didn't think she was going to get to watch it with us, and she ended up watching most of it with us today. But I know she'd be home to talk about it, and then I was like, oh, I don't want to watch it a second time in a week. And I'm like, no, I'm glad because it gave me the freedom to know all the beats, remember all the beats, concentrate on some other details, and look for some background stuff the second time through. So, I really enjoyed this pilot. I thought it was terrific. I thought it was much better than DS9 or Next Gen's pilots.
I would put this number 3, but I'm also, as far as pilot episodes,
Really?
but I'm also
Wow.
including the second.
Oh, the cage and Where No Man's Gone Before.
Yeah, and-
I would agree with that. I would agree
Okay,
with this
well,
as
yeah.
being behind both
I'm
of
very
us.
partial to Where No Man, as everyone knows. I'm
That's
very
a
partial
great
to
episode.
It is yeah.
And the cage is one of the best episodes of
I'll
Trek
just
of all
mention
time.
this right here. They have laser rifles in this episode, which
Yeah.
I want to believe was also a callback
To the
Where No Man
cage.
Has Gone Before.
Oh.
and I guess you're right.
They
the
both
cage
had-
they did
yeah,
too.
yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
I'm Team Emissary on this one.
I mean, honestly, I'll let you
Yeah.
finish in a minute,
Okay.
but the animated series, best pilot of all time. Just kidding. I don't even remember what the pilot was.
Yeah,
for that
okay.
show.
No idea. I thought you actually had.
No, I think
Yeah.
Yesteryear, which was the only decent episode of
was
that series, was
fourth or fifth.
number
Yeah,
2
it was
or
further
4th.
in,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, so let's start with the scroll. I think, as people have already mentioned, if you did not keep up on Next Gen and DS9, it told you who the Maquis were. I do think, similar to what Shane had said, when I first watched this, I was not current on the Maquis story.
Yeah.
And it was everything you need to know, but, and Keith said it as well. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
But I do think it's richer having just watched the Next Gen and DS9
I
Maquis
agree.
stuff.
Yeah.
Of like, we know who these are. We know that there's a lot of former Starfleet in it. We know they're freedom fighters who are good at heart. And this is a really unfair situation where one of the few times I would say it's pretty easy to argue that Starfleet and the Federation were wrong on this whole situation. So that automatically makes you more sympathetic to the Maquis. Whereas if you were just watching this pilot and going, oh, they're the enemy, I love Starfleet,
Yeah.
you're not as sympathetic.
They're just terrorists.
I think
Yeah, the Next Gen and DS9
watching
made it more
DS9,
sympathetic.
I was doing the Leo DiCaprio thing, like, I know them. Yeah, they're there. I know them. I know all about this.
It was a little Star Warsy, but
Look,
you had to do the
it was a
scroll though,
crawl.
right?
It was a crawl.
You had to do the crawl.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, DS9 did the crawl too.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's true. That's
really?
true.
All these
Yeah.
24th century spin-offs.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Emissary did the crawl.
I just wish they had a little more panache with them, but
Yeah. Well, good news. I'm 99% sure from my memory that Star Trek Enterprise does not do the crawl. And you know that New Trek doesn't do the crawl.
Jerry Goldsmith, I didn't realize he did the theme for this as well.
Yes!
Yeah,
Yes.
who also did motion picture TNG theme.
A legend.
I feel like all of the, maybe even the Stingers too, or whatever passes for Stingers in DS9, TNG, and Voyager. But also when we're coming back into scene, I feel like they're all the same.
Yeah.
right?
They pretty much are.
I mean,
Like-
uniformly across the
They're like,
franchise.
It's just
Yeah.
very like, oh, this is mid-90s sci-fi music. We're coming back to the show. Somebody's got, it's just very bland.
I
Yeah.
will say there were some themes, background music in this episode that reminded me of the original series background music, and that we haven't gotten for Next Gen and DS9.
That was going to be my next thing, which was
Didn't
going to
catch
be, can you think of any piece of music in anything past TOS
Right.
that has the relevant, that has
No.
Personality.
Honestly, I can
Not
see
just
now.
not just there as background, but like
Yeah, because I saw somebody the other day. I can't remember what the post was about on Facebook or whatever. It may not have even been about Star Trek, but they ended up getting to like all I hear is the fight music. Dun, dun, dun.
Yes.
And it was like, yeah, and all
then
the person had
Ruth's
to do was
theme.
write that, and everyone
But here,
Bruce theme, yeah.
But here's the thing: Next
Yeah.
Gen released a lot of albums of background music too. I think why the original series is more memorable is because they wrote 4 themes and just used them over and over again, whereas the other shows kept doing new music each episode. Which there are some memorable ones
That's
like
true.
the Inner Light from Next Gen, but yeah, most. And I'm not saying Caretaker has a memorable theme. I just felt like there were some strains of original series like background music in this episode.
Wait, so I need to pay more attention now because I feel like TOS was more liberal about like playing background music during the actual
Oh, yeah,
scenes
definitely.
than the other
Yes,
shows.
I
Because there's like
definitely,
maybe little intros and it was to drop out.
Definitely.
And they brought you some unconventional instrumentation and
Yes.
just unique themes, like TOS music immediately, whereas the other shows is just more of a standard orchestral score, which is amazing, but not as unique to Star Trek.
Getting into this episode, I do want to talk about the director. It was Winrich Colby, who is
I did see
a
that.
regular name for us. He ended up directing 16 episodes of Next Generation, starting in season 2, all the way through season 7, including the finale, All Good Things. So he was one of the go-to Trek directors at that time. Deep Space Nine, he directed 13 episodes.
Only 13?
Some of our people will, like Sean and Shane, won't get those recurring jokes that Keith
Maybe.
likes to throw in.
Speaking of bits we've been doing for 60 years.
So yeah, he directed 2 episodes of DS9 season 1, but he did not get the pilot. But he does direct all through all 7 seasons. And then for Voyager, he directed 18, which is the most of any of the Trek series he did through all 7 seasons. And will direct only 1 episode of Enterprise, and then they kicked him to the curb. They decided they didn't need Winrich Colby, and that was season 1 of Enterprise. I assume he doesn't have any credits after 2003. Oh, he died in 2012. So no wonder they haven't used him in New Trek. Also, writing-wise, before we get real into this show is credited as created by Rick Berman, Michael Piller, and Jerry Taylor. I know we've talked about Rick Berman before. He was an exec producer through Fox, or not Fox, the studio that made it. And he took over running Trek after Roddenberry's death. So he didn't do a lot of the writing himself, but he was the successor, Gene Roddenberry in those eras, before we get Alex Kurtzman now, who I believe is a better showrunner. But anyway, Michael Piller, we talked about, was instrumental in Next Gen for a long time. Went over to Voyager and then I think drifted away from the franchise. Jerry Taylor wrote some of the best emotional stuff from Next Gen, and she show ran Voyager for a while. And also wrote, I won't make you read it for a special episode, but there are 2 novels that they considered canon back in the day, written by Jerry Taylor. And one is Mosaic, which is a Janeway-centric novel. And then a prequel to the series. I think might be part prequel, part during. I can't quite remember. And then Pathways, which was like a prequel of each character leading into Voyager. But the writing room of Voyager essentially considered those canon and referred to those as they were planning plot stuff.
Nice.
So yeah, the teleplay was Michael Piller and Jerry Taylor. So yeah, obviously the top people were running this episode. What about that cold open? Keith says great. Steven just went. I'll do it louder because I don't think the microphone heard you.
I enjoyed it, but there was a little bit of like, it wasn't super exposition. I thought I was going to get super exposition.
No, actiony.
Yes, I appreciate that. They mentioned it's a 39-year-old engine, and I wonder, what is that in dog years? Because it was weird that she specified, well, it's a 39-year-old engine. I don't know what. And I'm like, Is
Me
that-
too. I'm a 39-year-old.
I think it depends who takes care of it. If Scotty's taking care of a 39-year-old engine, it's like new.
It's fine.
If it's
Right.
a lesser
He'll still
engineer,
say it just like that.
But I just thought in a pinch.
If it's O'Brien,
Is
it's
that
a
the
7-year-old
term
engine.
Janeway kept saying, in a pinch, you can call me ma'am.
in a crunch time.
In a crunch time.
In crunch time.
During crunch time, there's no need to mention it as a 39-year-old engine. Just say, I'm giving her all I got. Just
I think they wanted to tell us that the Maquis were using old technology.
Yes.
Maquis didn't have up-to-date technology.
That makes sense.
Even though the ship design is specific, I've complained about this before, I won't get into it. Why Star Trek felt the need to create a new ship for the Maquis when they're just using scrap together pieces.
Right.
It should have just looked like scrap together pieces. But whatever. Whatever. Star Trek, I guess because you need that visual reference of immediately we know this is a Maquis ship.
And we gotta sell them toys.
Right. Well, I don't think they ever sold the Maquis ship though. I never saw it for sale, and I never, other than when they did
And
the
we know you
micro
were
figure open one. Yes, I was, Sean. I could get the one Prey original series or next gen variety, but I couldn't get a Maquis ship.
To Stephen's point, though, it's
a
strange.
sore spot.
It's strange they had a specific number of years
Yeah.
that she was bringing up, like, and that just like like 39 specifically.
I guess it's not the. Again, there's gonna be a lot of Star Wars reference. It's not that you came in that. You're braver than I thought, kind of a thing, dude. Yeah, without that, yeah, and it. Although it did make the Kessel Run less than 12 parts.
Yeah.
That's a complete podcast, different podcast there. But
Also, one more note about that opening, cold open. Our old friend Golovec was back.
Yeah.
yeah,
I think this is his last Trek appearance. He's appeared like 6 episodes between Next Gen and DS9 in the last like
And then
year and a
this is
half.
it?
And I'm pretty sure this is it. I'm
What do you
not.
get a whole one shot
My-
there?
Yeah, I've got too many IMDb tabs open to research it for sure, but I'm pretty sure this was his last one.
My note about was actually about him too. I didn't realize it was Levesque. I'm kind of disappointed.
Avec.
Yeah. Oh, Avec.
Avec.
Golovec. Yeah.
Golovec.
I just I wanted to be like, oh my god, but I'm disappointed I didn't recognize him. But what I said was, I wish he'd just called back and said, "Did you just hang on me?"
That would have been great. And totally in character for Avec. Avec's never had a large part. He's just a minor annoyance anyway. Zoe, what did you think of the episode?
I like that they had a adventure, and I like how the two groups joined together.
You did. Who was your favorite character in this episode? Talk to the microphone, please.
Had a friend, and he was new.
Harry Kim. You liked Harry Kim best? Why did you like Harry Kim best?
Because
He was brave. What did you like seeing Janeway in live action after watching her as a cartoon?
yeah,
Yeah. Do you think it feels like the same character to you?
yes.
That was one of my favorite things about the show too. Just the melding of the crews, how seamlessly they seemed to, or they didn't drag it out too much.
See, that's one of my biggest complaints.
No. It's. I mean, it develops over the next few episodes at least. I mean, that's kind of a spoilery, but at the same time, they didn't waste time like insulting our intelligence about like this has to happen. It's more like, hey, they sprung it on us, and oh, this is cool. They're going to do it. So.
I think why that's sort of excusable is Chakotay's ex-Starfleet. B'Elanna at least went to the Academy briefly,
Right.
and none of the other characters count except for Seska, who we haven't met yet. So none of the other Maquis, and there is one other Maquis I remember that counts. I think-
Jonas?
yes. But essentially, most of the Maquis don't count, so it doesn't really matter if we get to know them or not. But I really, and not to, I really think they should have, instead of at the end being like, we didn't even see a conversation between Janeway and Chakotay. She's just telling Tom Paris, they all joined our crew and we're going to be one Starfleet crew. And I'm like, that should have been all of episode 2 was her negotiating with Chakotay and figuring it out.
All right, I'll give you that. That does make sense.
But I think they get away with it to a certain extent because former Starfleet or Starfleet adjacent.
And we talked a little bit about how packed to the gills it is with all the various plot elements. So anything that they put in the episode, has to be a big priority for them because
Right.
there's no extra room really.
Yeah.
Well, that's
So
what I'm
the
saying. It
fact-
should have been episode 2.
Yeah, the fact that they chose to open all of that with
Oh,
the Maquis crew
yeah,
instead
yeah.
of the Starfleet crew just shows how big of a priority that aspect of the plot is for them.
True. It's too bad they abandoned it so quickly.
We were
Oh, do they?
we were talking
Pretty
about
much.
this the other, where basically like I remember in this episode and future episodes where I felt when I first watched the series that like I wish they would have spent more time and like really drawn out some of the conflict and stuff like that, like the Maquis integrating with the crew and everything. But then nowadays, I feel like my opinion has shifted where I'm like, I actually appreciate the more episodic style where it's just like, we're just gonna avoid that conflict because it's fairly predictable in some ways, and so we just glossed over it. Like, if we get to it as a story point later, we get to it, but otherwise, like, let's just move on and tell some cool stories about the ship in an unknown sector.
And also letting the characters sort of develop themselves rather than it being about.
Right, yeah.
Something I noticed that really stood out to me in this pilot was it was extremely clear who the lead characters were. I'd say the only like fuzziness was I think Rollins got to do more than the Doctor. But other than that, like, you knew they only, even on the Maquis ship, we have 3 faces that are going to talk. We have some background. None of them have any talk. Rollins is only in this episode, which surprised me. Rollins, who was played by Scott McDonald.
Who is he?
He was the guy that kept leaving in charge on the bridge when they were off doing their episodic things.
Huh.
Best known for Jarhead, The Last Champion, 3-Day Weekend, and the 1997 film Jack Frost. He has 82
the horror
credits.
film.
Yes, the horror
Oh,
film.
that.
82 credits.
That was the first officer? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, no, not the first officer.
He was at Harry's station, right?
For part of it, he was flying the ship, part of it he was at Tuvok, part of it he was like captain's chair.
He's a real Neelix. He just does it all.
He does it all. This actor has a handful of other Trek credits before. I'd say most memorable, he played Tosk in the Hunter Prey episode of Deep Space Nine.
Great role.
Season 1. He was the prey species. So he was a utility player, but I also felt like it's really a shame that he had so much in this pilot and then we never ever see him again. And that he kept being left in charge of the ship. Whereas the Doctor had almost no development in this pilot other than to introduce him. And I think that was okay. But I'm saying if you're identifying main characters other than those 2, the other 8 people that are main characters, you're like, yep, it's Janeway, Kim, Tuvok, Chakotay, B'Elanna, Paris, Neelix, Kess. I know it's them because we're focusing on them. They're the only ones that get to talk. We got a little brief bit of Carey in engineering, and Carey is a reoccurring role. Which is funny because he was so much smaller of a role in this episode than Rollins, and we never see Rollins again, but we see Carey a number of times.
Maybe he's the night captain.
Yeah.
Probably.
Second shift.
I mean, I guess we need Carey because we need somebody to conflict with Torres if she's the chief engineer. But anyway, I don't want to get too spoilery because I know some people haven't seen episodes.
I've forgotten about that.
But yeah, I just thought it was it felt a little convenient that we were only focusing on the main characters, but to introduce an audience, it felt really like focused in a good way. I mean, I know were you aware of who was main cast before you watched this?
Some of the folks.
Okay.
But there were some I was like, I don't want to ask anything because I don't want you guys to tip the hand.
Did you expect Neelix and Kess to stick around?
No.
No.
Interesting.
I didn't.
I thought halfway through, because they didn't even show up till essentially part 2 of the 2 hour. And I was like, yeah, I would assume they were guest characters if I didn't know any better.
That was 2 hours? Didn't feel like it.
Well, without commercials, it was an hour and a half. But the first Neelix scene was essentially the beginning of part 2 of season half, which is probably why, and I wrote it was a really good, they were planning for if we get cut in 2 parts because it was so exposition-y.
Yeah.
And also, like, recapping what had happened by talking to Neelix. It was a really good scene to restart the story on. I love that. Of course, we have more to talk about before we get to there.
This also launched UPN, right?
It did. It did. And it was the number 1 show on UPN for a long time.
I didn't go back. What did that UPN stand for? I can't even remember.
United Paramount Network.
What is that one? Okay.
Yeah.
Just to go back to the
With
first
actual
officer
streams.
that dies.
What? He died? We're not to that yet, Steve. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Scott, I don't know, Jaeck, I'm going to say Jake. He was uncredited actually in this episode. So
What?
Yeah.
I didn't notice that.
That's how quickly he's on and off. But he's one of those guys who's got a ton of credits, including a Seinfeld.
We're talking about the guy that
Lieutenant Commander
you get brace yourself. He like jumps at the camera.
Yeah.
Couldn't have been any less braced if he tried.
I was like, is he in this for that? Nope, he's not in for that long. Because I was like, I know that guy. Nope.
He's just a guest star, best known for guest spots in Prison Break, Dark Skies, Hot Pursuit, Jag. 69 credits. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
He's still active. Still has credits from this year. Did you think at any point, Steven, that Cavett and Stoddy were going to be main characters?
No.
No, really?
Yeah.
First officer and pilot, you were dismissing.
Actually, him I did think at first. I'm like, oh, I know him.
Okay.
I thought he was going to be around, and then immediately he's dispatched. And it's like, okay.
Why not Stotty?
I don't know. For some reason, I just did not feel that.
Stotty, who was played by Alicia Coppola.
Yeah.
She's best known for National Treasure Book of Secrets, Another World, We Are Your
With the
Friends, Between Us, 90
National
credits.
Treasure Book of Secrets with that other Coppola, Nicolas Cage.
I enjoyed her, and even though I knew she was about to die, I thought they were kind of developing something with her. I felt Cabot and the Doctor less so, but her, I felt like, oh, this is going to be a character in the show.
So you're talking about the biological doctor.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, in the book, his name is Fitzgerald, but in the show, in the IMDb is just credited as Human Doctor, and in the show, I don't think they ever said his name. So
I almost said just human doctor.
Human doctor.
yeah, it's Fitzgerald in the book. I will say one thing the book did, and I'm not going to talk a lot about the book. I did not take specific notes about the novelization.
I do have a question about that though.
Yeah.
Was it Farmer's daughter in the book?
Yeah. Yes, she was. Of course she was.
She's
actually the main
Farmer's daughter.
Did it say Farmer's Daughter?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think it just described her as like a beautiful girl. I don't know. But they did give, as the wave hit them, they did a specific scene in the book from the perspective of Cabot. As he goes and dies.
Oh.
It was like a 4-page scene. And then they did a specific scene about Stotty where they're like, oh, as a Betazoid, she's getting everybody else's visions or whatever, then she dies. And then they do a couple other scenes, and then you get the Doctor's death scene from his perspective. Which, he protects the nurse. He's like, am I being misogynistic? Because I'm crawling over to protect the nurse. And it's like, okay, I'm kind of glad you're dead. By the end of that scene.
I also like how Stotty's introduced with Tom Paris accusing her of being frigid.
Yes.
Little did he know just how frigid she would end up.
What do you think they did with the dead bodies? You think they ejected them into space?
Well, probably ate them, because replicator rations.
Oh, that's true. Good point. And they just gave away all that water, so you're going to need the water from the bodies, Dune style. Pull it out. Pull it back out.
That first scene with Paris and her, I'm like, creepy. And then I was like, no.
That's Berman Trek.
And then,
That is
true.
absolutely
This is true. And then a couple more scenes with Paris, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to move him up to rogue status. I like this guy. I'm in.
He was
They haven't even said it yet.
They did a lot to redeem him. I will say the show will go a lot back and forth on him.
Which I'm okay with. I felt like a lot of the characters were not necessarily perfectly good or bad. I like that.
Very glad Paris wasn't just, he rescued Chakotay, we're good with him now.
Yeah.
I agree. And I think and the book goes out of their way, I do think if this episode had a main character, it's Paris. He got the most development of anybody in the pilot. It almost was like, are you the Michael Burnham? Are you going to be the main character for a while?
Yeah.
But, yeah, I will say the book goes into his head, and all the lashing out and sarcasm, the book explains as own internal insecurity and dealing with it. The novelization is written by L.A. Graff, which is a pen name for 2 female authors that partner. So it did have the female perspective in the writing. One thing that bothered me in the opening credit, the scene after the opening credits, which beautiful opening credits. I was disappointed Stotty didn't fly Paris around Voyager, give us a better look, motion picture style. But because we just had the theme song, where it was just Voyager flying around, I feel like that's why they didn't do it. Otherwise, you just got to give up your runtime.
Yeah.
But right after the theme song, they run the guest star names, which don't matter for the most part, except it said, and Armin Sherman is Quark. And it specifically called it out as Quark. So there was no doubt that Quark's about to show up, main character in New Space Nine.
I know who
Oh, okay, just checking.
I wish I'd missed that. That part. I was like, what?
Why would you? In the book, there is an Odo scene before that where Paris walks on board Deep Space Nine with Stotty, and Odo's there, waiting with his security officer, and it's from Paris's perspective, and he's all in his head about, they're watching me because I'm a criminal, and they know. And then by the end of the scene, he realizes, no, Odo's greeting everybody that comes on board because that's just common courtesy. And I feel like a total jerk about. Okay, I keep a clean rating.
That's right.
I feel like a total jerk about how I felt about Odo prejudging me. And that's a common theme for Paris in this, and I think you see that part on screen. That he assumes everybody else is judging him, so he's going to judge him first. He's going to jump right out there. I mean, Paris is one of my favorite characters from the show. I have a bunch of favorite characters, but he's one of them. I'd say there's 4 characters that are my favorite, but yeah.
Are we going to do the Locarno thing, or did you already cover that in your first duty?
Oh, we did not. So one of my first, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've got 9 alternate episodes written in the side margins.
Wow.
And my first one is, why didn't they just make him Locarno? Because Robert Duncan McNeil, it's such a similar backstory about a pilot error that resulted in death and cover-up. I think the only big difference that they couldn't just take him word for word is that Paris confessed himself and would have gotten away with that without the confession, where Locarno was caught either way. But I still think you could have done that in a different way. Why did they make it a new character? I'm sure this was a Berman decision of, we don't want continuity.
The decision was because they didn't want to have to pay royalties for every single Voyager episode to the person who wrote the first duty for creating the character.
Really? I just assumed it was to avoid continuity.
Same personality, gave him a new name, and said, screw off the guy that wrote Locarno.
If you haven't watched First Duty, you should, just for the Locarno backstory, because I know you like Lower Decks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Was that from the TNG episode with the Wesley?
Yeah. Same actor.
Yep.
Wait.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's Tom Paris with the.
Yes.
Oh God.
It's
Wow.
Robert Duncan McNeil.
Wow.
But
It couldn't be more brazen.
Wow.
man, if Gene Roddenberry were alive and he'd written that episode, he would have made sure he got those roles.
You know it.
He would have put himself as a co-writing credit on that episode retroactively, and then made it the same character.
So, according to a random website that I found, there's 2 explanations. One is that they would have had to pay a lot of money to the person who came up with the name Nick Locarno in real life.
Oh.
So,
Yeah, the author, yeah.
The second is just that basically he was too unsympathetic as a character.
He was.
Okay.
He was. Paris was a little softer, but it was almost the same character.
Right.
And it's, seriously, it felt really weird that they would do that. When I first saw First Duty, I was like, what the heck? Kudos to Star Trek Lower Decks for making it up after the fact of following up on both characters in distinctly different ways.
Yeah.
And bringing Robert Duncan McNeil back for both. They mentioned early on bioneural circuitry being a new thing for Voyager. Am I wrong, or in Relics did Geordi talk to Scotty about bioneural circuitry being like a concept or a new thing?
Can't remember for sure.
I feel like it was mentioned then, and then I think somebody was like, let's develop that further and make it part of the.
Oh, what a beautiful ship! Intrepid class ships are so sleek.
And do you like
Favorite style? Yeah.
And then the cells go up when they go to warp. I don't know if you caught that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun.
Now I'm backing up because we talked about the doctor that died.
Yes.
I didn't know until tonight that Picardo was.
Bob Picardo?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, was a.
Oh, you didn't know about the.
I did not.
You know the actor though.
I know the actor. From a bunch of other things, trying to beach and other things, but I did not, and I knew he was a doctor on here, but I did not. That was it. That's all I knew. So that was to me that was very cool.
We've already done a couple on IMDb, and I will try to keep this brief. But
You're saying you didn't know he was a hologram?
No, I didn't know going in. I did.
You knew he was on the show. You just didn't know he was.
He was on the show. Knew he was a doctor. Did not know that part of it.
Wow.
So yeah.
Oh, you're in for some.
That's a good conceit.
Yeah.
That's the pre-show conversation about how he's showing back up now. That probably makes more sense.
Well, then they all connected back. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So Bob Picardo, according to IMDb, has 253 acting credits. Best known for Star Trek Voyager, China Beach, Star Trek First Contact, which you haven't seen yet, the movie.
Yep.
Although that's a small role. And Inner Space, great movie. He's wonderful in that.
Huh.
Yeah.
Martin
I
Short.
think he has a bit in
Yes.
Gremlins too, if I'm not mistaken.
He's got a bit in so much.
Yeah.
He's a Joe Dante guy.
Yeah, obviously he's in Star Trek Prodigy now. He was in the Orville a couple episodes.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So, in the same episode with the Doctor from Star Trek Enterprise. I like that they had brought the two doctors together. So yeah, Bob Picardo, one of the main cast. We'll hit all the main cast at some point during this conversation. Back to the DS9 stuff. It did feel a little forced in, even though DS9's near the Maquis and the Badland. I'm not upset about a shot of DS9. I'm not upset about a scene with Quark because he was
great.
Wonderful.
And,
great introduction of Harry Kim. And calling, I got this from Amorn, even though we saw Morn in the shot. Yeah. You know who Morn is now.
I do,
Do you know who Morn is?
No.
So the alien that was first in the shot before it panned over to Quark and Kim was Morn.
And they lingered on him.
He never has a single line DS9, but he's in almost every episode. And he's the rearranged of the name Norm from Cheers. He's always sitting at the bar.
That's great.
He's always sitting at the bar. Yeah. So the fact that Quark goes, I got this from Amorn, and his name is Morn. It's like, it's just. That's for the fans.
Yeah, I have one Star Trek action figure and it's Morn.
Oh, I have him. I have like 200, but I have him. They mentioned that Paris is going to be an observer on this mission when we meet him in New Zealand. No hobbits in sight, unfortunately. But it really kind of bothered me he was in the Starfleet uniform. I guess it was because they didn't want to spend the costume budget to make him another outfit. As an observer, you should be in civilian clothes. Just you didn't get the pips till the end of the last scene.
I have a bunch of things to jump off of that. One is, do they pick New Zealand because Australia was originally a penal colony?
I would think so.
What if we...
I would think, or because it was empty and there's lots
of space. SS Botany Bay,
hilarious.
of course, while we're talking
Yes.
about that. But and all I can think about when I'm watching him walk around, like, well, I'm a prisoner. I'm like, you're on one of the most beautiful places in the world.
So I'm pretty sure this is the first time we've seen a Federation prison, but this is what most, other than the original series, where it was a mental institution.
Right.
But obviously that episode showed how wrong that approach was.
Right.
And I think from here on out, this is what a Trek prison is.
Okay. Well,
Other than the artificial intelligence prison we see in Lower Decks, which is just racks of shells.
and then he's like, well, what do I get for this? And she's like,
Yeah.
we'll put in a good word for you. I'm like, I was like, and now,
Well, she said you get to go out.
Go with us,
Yeah,
and you get to do that.
No, but she also said we're going to cut you loose at the end. He gets to go on. Basically, it's his freedom. He
I thought
he committed
she
a
was
minor
saying-
enough crime. They were offering us freedom in exchange for this one mission.
Oh, I thought she would just say we're going to put in a good word at your parole hearing.
On his outmate hearing, which was so he could be released. And then there's another line later that says we're going to cut you loose after this mission.
Okay. All right. Because I was like, well, this isn't exactly 48 hours or Escape from New York kind of stakes here, which I think would have been great. But it makes sense. And then, I mean, I knew he was going to get stuck on the other side of the galaxy with them, so, but still.
How could you possibly know that?
Well, yeah, that context clues.
Oh, I had one note about that, and it was just his indignance about observers. It's Watcher or nothing.
The one other thing I have to jump off that is, how do we feel about the uniforms in general?
Oh,
These
that's.
uniforms.
I mean, I like the uniforms, but that's again, those were probably the first ones I vividly remember.
Yeah.
Even though I mean,
Okay.
I had seen
Sure.
other ones before that, but this is the first show that I had ever watched like full through. So like to me, that's like if you say picture a uniform, that's the one that I go to. Same with the comm badge. That's the one that I have a replica of at home, which is just slightly different, you know.
The comm badge was the one was introduced in Star Trek Generations, the film right before this.
Yeah.
But the uniform is similar to Generations, where you reverse the colors, but it's a little bit different because it doesn't have the Generations. They have the turtleneck underneath it, and I think we talked about when we reviewed Generations that they actually borrowed Chakotay Paris and somebody else's uniforms and put them on Riker, Data, and stuff like for part of the movie.
Great.
Yeah.
I like my favorite Trek uniform, other than the Wrath of Khan uniforms, which is class.
They're great.
Beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Is what DS9 is going to move to after this, and they use them in the next gen films. But Voyager never updated, even though it was the same era, because they can't talk to home, so they didn't get the
that's-
they didn't get the update.
They look comfortable. That's all.
Although
they look comfortable. I don't know if they don't. I don't think they look sharp, but they look comfortable.
This is a little behind the scenesy and not really completely relevant to the pilot. But while their uniforms did not update, their phasers and tricorders did update later in the show. So in the next gen movies in DS9, they get a slight phaser and tricorder update. Voyager got it, even though they weren't in communication with home. I guess at that point they just said, well, they were loaded in the replicator. They just hadn't started producing them yet.
They took apart one of their 500 shuttlecraft and made it into new tricorders.
What'd you think of Mark, Janeway being in a relationship with her boyfriend Mark, played by Stan Ivor? Best known for Creature, NCIS, again, just guest star, a couple episodes, The Practice, Little House, The Last Farewell. He's got 72 credits.
Tom Paris, for example. I mean, like I'd forgotten like all of his backstory. As far as those little details about it, I was
His
surprised.
dad being an admiral and all that.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I forgot about the Maquis link and all that. And her, I forgot that they even had any sort of like connection, or her having any sort of life outside of
Really?
before this. My only note about what that was the "Love Me, Love My Dog," which I said that Shane would probably be able to relate to.
I thought the same thing. You know, it's a shame they never mention Mark of the Dog again. Just kidding, they do mention it again because Voyager has some continuity.
Well, and I think it's
Just only some.
That was great because while not everyone, I mean, you assume that everyone has somebody that they are going to miss, like, that helps put her decisions in perspective of, like, she's not just being a captain who's like whatever. Like she's sacrificing a lot too. So she's along with everyone, along for the ride with everyone. So her decisions, she's like, yeah, I know, it sucks. Like,
Yeah.
I also
She's
feel
gonna miss her dog having puppies.
Right, your dog and a boyfriend, but the dog.
No, I think you make an excellent point of if we did not have Mark in the pilot, it would make her sacrifice less. It would make her less.
It would just seem like she's just a company man going, whatever, guys, just
Yeah.
the fault. Let's go.
I thought she did give a really good performance of like the goo eyes at the,
So good.
the screen.
Yeah.
Kate
You can really
Mulgrew
tell she did
killed
to
it.
him. Yeah.
So Janeway, played by Kate Mulgrew, who's best known for Star Trek Voyager, of course. Orange is the New Black. Star Trek Nemesis, according to this, the film. Star Trek Voyager Elite Force, the video game. Doesn't even mention Star Trek Prodigy and her best known on IMDb.
Miss Columbo isn't on it?
Columbo is not on
She
there.
burst onto the scene as Miss Columbo?
No, it does not list Columbo. Obviously, she's had lots of guest parts, including, I think I mentioned before, she was in the Christmas special Roots the Gift, where she played a slave catcher who had caught Avery Brooks.
Wow.
This was before either of them did Star Trek. And it was the LeVar Burton era, Kunta Kinte. So he was in it too, and I think Tim Russ was a house slave in
Okay, that's spoiled my mind.
it. We still need to do that as a special episode, because it's got so many Star Trek people in it before they were Star Trek.
Is it
But
literally called Roots the Next
It's
Generation?
called Roots the Gift. Roots the Next Generation. No, Roots the Next Generation is a 7-part miniseries. This was before that. This is called Roots the Gift.
Okay.
But I love that. Not love. I obviously can't love it. But having Janeway slave catcher Cisco, there's something about that that's like, oh.
But that's awkward at the Comic-Con panel.
Yeah. It's just a fun phenomenon whenever you get to notice things like, just like the whole actors kind of piggybacking, pulling each other from.
Yep.
So you have to wonder if that had anything to do with these jobs.
Might have.
Right.
We get introduced to Janeway. We get the whole Sir Ma'am exchange of I prefer Captain, which is great.
First female captain.
And I get why they would still call her ever. No, we had Rachel Garrett. We had she's the first to headline.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, but because we've had female captains in Star Trek, just not as the lead character.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that she likes to be called Captain. The Sir makes sense. We do it in Universe Journey. That even the females are called Sir.
So that's actually one of the few things I remembered about this. One of the only things I remembered about this episode was that conversation.
Oh, that's such a
that-
memorable exchange.
You should definitely track moving forward how many times he calls her ma'am for the rest of the show.
So we hit the wave. A lot of people died. A lot of I think somebody said during the episode, it did seem like a disproportionate number of senior staff died in the wave.
Had to make room.
A lot of them.
It was the captain and Harry Kim were left, and chief engineer died. Well, security chief wasn't on board, but chief engineer died, first officer died, pilot died, the doctor and the nurse, because the crew they mentioned is only like 130, so that's like a quarter the size of the original series. That's why they only have one doctor and one nurse, which makes sense, I think, for a crew that size. I don't begrudge them that.
It's
but-
a science vessel, so their general their main point there is like they're an exploratory ship, so they're not really.
They shouldn't need too much.
You shouldn't.
They never really did stop to suggest the total number of casualties, right? Like, we know about the senior
No,
staff,
they
but
didn't.
do we assume that a similar proportion of everyone else is dead too? Because we don't really stop to mourn people.
I wondered if there's another first season episode that gives us the crew complement, and I'm not sure, but it seemed to me from this episode that we should expect almost half to be dead. Like of 130 something, I think like 60 are probably dead, but I don't know if we get a number anytime soon. And the Maquis ship, I know we only saw like 5 or 6, but I think it had a complement of like closer to 20 or 30, and like half of them died. I could be wrong.
Well, see, I think that's something else that they didn't really call out that speeds up that conversation about merging the crews and bringing them, as part of it. That like they need people to fill in the gaps of what's been left. So.
Right.
And
They left
another
itself
like
open.
reflection of their mission orientation with the way they build this plot. Like, they weren't really worried about the people and memorializing who had passed because they weren't important to the future plot.
They did not for a second. It was, and then later, though, she's getting real sad about
Harry Kim.
Yeah, it's like
because he's a main character, and Cabot's not.
Like,
Neither is Stady.
what about all these people?
Cabot, no.
It's kind of like and TOS and TNG both. There were different times where
Cabot was wearing a red uniform.
there were different times where Kirk or Picard was
So
like
it's Stady.
really upset over one death, but then All these other deaths, not such a big deal.
Well, I do think.
Like Kirk's brother dies.
Well, yeah, but that was Shatner in a mustache. To
Even more of a loss. To
devil's advocate the situation for a second. I think Kim might have hit home because he was brand new graduate on his first mission.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas the rest were more experienced and knew the risks a little better. I think.
I will say, just to back up a little bit, I love that idea of guy's first day.
Yeah.
Right.
That actually.
It was a good choice. I do think we forget far too often that this was Paris' second mission. Because he got kicked out on his first mission, got arrested on his first Maquis mission, so I guess third if you count the Maquis mission. But I think way too often I view him as a more seasoned member of the crew.
Right.
But he had one mission before.
All disastrous.
Well,
Tom Paris, played by Robert Duncan McNeil. We haven't talked about his credits. Best known for Resident Alien as a producer. He's a producer of the show Resident Alien. And then playing Tom Paris in Voyager, playing one guest appearance in Chuck, and 19 guest producing episodes in Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce. He does have 52 directing credits, 12 producer credits, and 30 acting credits. So
Just to
clearly
back
he's
up,
leaning more
so him
towards
producing
producing
Chuck, he and Zachary Levi probably exchange emails all the time. about
He didn't produce Chuck, he guest starred in Chuck.
okay.
One episode.
Well, that's probably what happened.
going back to the thing about Harry Kim.
Yes. Harris Kim. Just kidding.
Yeah, no, I'd forgotten until we started talking about that. I mean, the context of the scene though makes it make more sense.
Yeah.
It's when it's part of. She has a chance to sort of sit down and think about it, and reflect, and have a conversation about it, looking through the records and thinking. And he would be more noteworthy than some of the other people.
Yeah.
I mean, for the first
Senior staff first
yes.
mission.
Right, for the
Well,
purpose of the conversation. It's not like she's like standing up in the room and giving like a eulogy or something. It's just
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, all the other people are dead. She can't do anything about that now. So it's like,
that's true,
and he,
yeah.
and he was the only one that was taken from the ship. So
There
it's
you
like,
go.
well, we're here. We don't know what's going on. Let's do what we can to save at least this young kid.
the last time he'll be viewed as that special.
And I don't think they ever really come right out and say what makes him so special, but he really must be because he's fresh out of the academy, ensign, immediately senior staff on a
Right.
state-of-the-art vessel
And
with a
yet-
dangerous mission.
And yet,
No
the
spoilers.
number one trope about Harry Kim,
Never promote the men.
never promoted. 7 seasons, he's still innocent at the end. I'm sorry, Steven, for spoiling that, but he is still innocent at the end of 7 seasons.
My favorite joke.
It's become a huge running gag behind the scenes.
I really
Other characters get promoted during the run of the show. He does not.
I genuinely hope that if we ever see him again in live action, he's
still
still an
ensign.
ensign. I just
30 years
want
later.
30 years still an ensign. I would just love that.
Like if they show
would
him in
have
the
done it lower
fleet
deck,
of
you would
Picard
think.
and he's like the captain of his own ship and
Yeah.
he still has just the one tip.
Oh, because we have first officers or lieutenant commanders instead of commanders. Because we have a captain that's an ensign.
It would be real. Yeah.
He's just always an acting captain.
Did it bother anybody else when the wave hit? We did see Cavett run at the camera, but then we go to White, comes back, it's already over. We don't see everybody else follow.
Right.
Like we just watched Generations, where they're in a firefight, and there's so much time spent of everybody falling over railings
Yeah.
and tumbling, and nobody falls here. Second alternate episode of the 9. We're gonna get to the other ones quicker, I promise. Second one is we see them falling. And then a door at the back of the bridge opens and Spock walks on. That's for the Star Trek II The Wrath of Khan fans. Shane might not get it.
See, I thought you were going to go to a Star Trek motion picture because it reminded me of the Voyager taking Aaliyah.
Yeah, this is
all
Voyager.
those effects. Yeah.
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 my God, I might have to go back and rewatch all this
See,
stuff again.
I also
So
thought
soon
the
as it's
Badlands and the
gone.
Wave looked a little bit like the Nexus we just got in Star Trek Generations.
It-
So one of my other alternate episodes is instead of ending on a farm, well, it is a farm, but it's the ranch, and Picard and Kirk are on the horsebacks instead of the horse, because we saw a horse as soon
Oh
two
my
horses as soon as
God,
we
that'd
premiered, and they're in the Nexus, and Picard and Kirk are there.
That'd be great.
I thought fittingly all the stuff with the wave looked like mid-90s computer graphics.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Video
this
games.
did air in January '95.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I thought,
It was pretty advanced for TV at the time.
yeah.
But yeah, it looks dated. Very much. We get the emergency medical hologram because the 2 medical staff members are dead. Rob Ricardo, we already talked about the actor. Steven, I know how much you hate holodeck episodes. How did it strike you that we are now going to have a main character who's a hologram?
I like Robert Picardo, so far I'm in.
Open-minded.
Yeah.
Give it a chance.
Plus he's kind of cranky, so I'm enjoying that.
You do know he can only be in scenes in sickbay and the holodeck, though,
Well, that's
because he's a hologram.
the sickbay part. I'm okay with.
He can't go on away missions.
That's disappointing.
I will say I think Voyager does a lot more holodeck episodes than Next Gen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's.
Buckle up.
They're better. They're better. I promise you.
Brace yourself.
Well, it's
The holodeck doesn't always break when they go in.
They keep the security protocols.
Yes,
on.
they keep
don't-
the yes.
Yeah, we'll take them on.
They rarely are like at risk of dying in the holodeck on Voyager.
so the thing that struck me this time that certainly didn't back then is that the Doctor sighing. Just almost immediately.
He's so acerbic.
Yeah, this is a hologram for programmed to have those kinds of reactions to just be exasperated.
You remember we eventually meet the person he's modeled on because he's given a specific personality.
Okay, that's what I was gonna. It's kind of like the Star Wars conversation of the droids that are programmed.
Yeah.
It's Return of the Jedi when the one droid is torturing the other droid. It's
Yeah.
like, why is that one programmed to give pain, and why does that one have programming that allows it to feel pain?
Yeah.
It doesn't. And
Yeah.
and then the C-3PO thing. That's just another thing
Yeah,
altogether. Why is
fear
that
all
guy-
the time.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, what are you doing?
And maybe it's not fear isn't programmed in, but it's not programmed out either. So it can learn. So, anyway.
Yeah, it does seem like he generally just doesn't want to be doing his job.
Right.
It's like, it's a hassle for him to be on.
Well, I do think.
I feel that. I mean,
Yeah, I will say I think once we meet the guy that created him, it makes sense canon wise. I do think if we view all of Trek as a whole, it makes sense canon wise why the EMH is so grumpy and awful. But if you're just viewing this for the first time without having seen those things later,
Right now,
it's like I do remember when I first watched Voyager season 1, I was like, why would you program a hologram to be so awful with bedside manner?
Now that I've just thought about it for a second, just looking at the way that video games have been developed over the last however long.
Yeah.
Sometimes you throw those things in there for fun. Maybe it's supposed to entertain the crew. The fact that he acts like that.
Yeah.
Kind of like a.
it's only supposed to be an emergency measure, so.
And McCoy was cranky.
Yeah.
The lower decks. The doctors.
Spock wish he
right.
could have turned McCoy off.
They fired Crusher to bring in Cantankerous Pulaski.
Yeah, that's right.
I loved Pulaski. I love Crusher too, but I think Pulaski gets a raw deal. I enjoyed her very much. I want more. I want Pulaski in New Trek. Stanimals still alive? She might not be because she was in the
I
original
think
series.
she's passed.
I think we lost.
I think it was recently though, like in the last 3 or 4 years. Nope, she's still alive. 86.
Oh wow.
We need Pulaski in New Trek stat before she
Yeah.
dies.
And that's the only reason.
Did anybody else notice a lack of aliens among the Voyager crew? Obviously, Tuvok, Vulcan,
Right.
is
Killed the Betazoid.
and we killed the Betazoid. But did you see any other non-humans? It really
There
struck
might
me on
have
the
been an
array.
alien in the background somewhere.
It really struck
maybe
me
that
on
was
the
on
array, and
DS9.
I'm assuming it's because we got the hologram, we got Neelix and Kess, we don't need more aliens in the cast. But for background actors, we should have had a couple more aliens.
You can never
We got-
have too many.
We got Torres, who's going to be the main character, and she's half Klingon. She's only half Klingon, in case that wasn't clear.
I did pick up on that. Also.
Half Klingon, half human. That proves we can procreate with Klingons. That will make Steven's day.
But yeah.
What? Does that mean?
Yeah, because now he can. Well, you don't want to
Right.
procreate. You just want to
Exactly.
be able to do the act of procreating.
Well, yes. Yeah.
See, that kind of that's like a downside, I would think.
Well, doesn't he say? I think it's Kim that says, "I wish I had a little Klingon blood in me." It
Yeah.
made me think of. All I could think of was like,
Oh God.
"Do you have a little Klingon in you?"
Yeah.
Do you
Like some? Yeah, that's all I can think of.
That's probably how he meant it.
100%.
The blood part shouldn't be what you want.
To spread out some more of these IMDb pages, Kim is played by Garrett Wong, best known for Star Trek Voyager, the video game Star Trek Voyager Elite Force, a fan-made Star Trek of Gods and Men, and the TV series Phoenix, which I've never heard of, but it's 2024. It's right now. He was in 6 episodes. I can say I've encountered him in real life, and he seems total surfer dude in real life.
Oh, really?
Which is pretty cool. Yeah, no, he's
I thought, and maybe this is just because it was 1995, but his whole look to me was Joey on Friends.
yes.
Haircut,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
kind of his blank. I'm gonna call him a blank face. I mean, I think he was. I enjoyed him so far.
He
One episode
had so his first acting credit is 1994. So he was brand new as an actor when he got cast
Okay.
in this.
Fun.
Makes sense because he's such a young character.
You did leave out a very important credit for both Paris and Kim.
Okay.
They have their own Star Trek podcast.
They
What a couple
do.
of nerds.
They do. Anybody that's a Star Trek podcast is awful. Should not be listened to at all. Totally discounted from society.
Scum of the quadrant.
Same reason I leaned over to Shane halfway through, I think, when they mentioned that Kim played clarinet, and I'm like, loser, clarinet. Because Shane and I both play clarinet.
I noticed that they used 2 words. I only noted one of them that I've never heard anywhere else on TV. Scurrilous.
Oh, really?
Quark said that about the aspersions that are being cast on.
Sure.
So yeah,
Such a good scene.
The other one I can't remember. It's toward the end. I can't remember what it was, and I wish I'd noted it. But yes. So yeah, Star Trek people scurrilous.
Nice.
I'm gonna back up just a little bit, even though I'm kind of going forward. But you guys were mentioning like, oh, we don't have time to mourn the dead and all that stuff. But then there's the scene where they're on the escalator and they're just riding it.
Yeah.
They're not walking up the escalator. They're just riding it. Like this is. We have to hurry.
That's when they paused to mourn the dead. They were thinking about the dead on the escalator.
I got distracted. It's like, oh yeah, we can.
I was like, what is going on here?
Another alternate episode when they bring them over to the Caretaker's array. The banjo should have been playing do-do-do-do-do-do-do to indicate danger.
Oh yeah, actually, a possible explanation for the escalator thing is it could have been safety regulations. They're just like, oh, well, we have to stand here.
The Okampa are very careful.
walking.
Yeah.
The Caretaker doesn't want us to walk up the escalator.
Oh,
That would be going against
He
his
was
will.
because he was very he was quite the nanny.
Protective.
Yeah, the
Like a-
government
like a
nanny.
caretaker.
That's why I'm with Zachary Levi and Robert Duncan McNeil. I was like, we can't have a nanny state, and that's what the Caretaker's doing here.
Wow.
I also have an alternate episode. Another alternate episode in the array was what if Paris and Kim had actually accompanied the farmer's daughter down to the root cellar, and we just saw them going down there, and then we come up with a scene. Then the next scene, they're like brushing dirt off of them, and then going to the barn.
I almost went there for my husband.
It would be a really different dynamic to Paris and Kim's relationship if Paris is like, dude, and Kim's like, okay, I guess.
Oh God. It's just, maybe
I don't want to be rude.
Yeah.
you maybe think Paris.
And then when they woke up,
Paris Eiffel Tower.
oh god! And then when they woke up,
You know, it's lost our clean status.
no, because she didn't say.
It's just a place.
And then when
Paris, that's
when they wake up, it's not the farmer's daughter next to them; it's the purple blob. And there's a little purple goo on each of their uniforms. And then that better explains Kim then being like, "Oh, we couldn't procreate. I'm going to transfer you with the source." And Paris only topped, so he didn't have the same problem. Oh God! I also did see a little bit of parallel between Next Gen, starting with Q, a godlike being who is testing them and seeing them as a lesser species, and the mystery of the Farpoint aliens versus this as a higher being. And there's a mystery of how he's connected to these aliens. There's a little bit of parallel there. I do think Voyager comes out better in that comparison, but still.
You take the Caretaker over Q.
Yeah, I didn't say
I wouldn't do that, but I would take this episode over that.
Yeah, I would take this episode over Encounter Farpoint.
Yeah, I'm not a Q
I'm
lover,
not
but-
saying I would take the Caretaker over Q.
Alright.
I think there's a distinction. You know,
Yeah,
DC
yeah.
Fontana's original Encounter Farpoint did not include Q. Gene added Q as part of when he made her make it 2 hours instead of 1.
Such a whack.
But also so he could have a writing credit and get royalties forever. Yes, very weird that.
Well, that's what I was saying at the beginning. It's such a more like, even though there are parallels, it's so much more grounded in the scope of space stuff.
It's still space.
So Kim and Torres wake up. They're in a hospital. Let's talk about the actress behind Torres for a minute, Roxanne Dawson. I remember specifically when the show was on the air, she's credited as Roxanne Biggs Dawson, but she has dropped the Biggs hyphen at some point. Best known as a director, her IMDb credits, best known, are all directing credits.
Oh, interesting.
For Breakthrough, Foundation, The House of Dolores Roach, and 2 episodes of The Americans.
The Apple Foundation, the new series.
Foundation, the 2021 to 2023.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, the new Apple show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and 2 episodes of The Americans.
That's a good show.
She has 38 credits as an actress, 60 as a director, and 5 as a producer. She was a producer on Handle for 6 episodes. She is a producer on Foundation,
Okay.
as well as the Horror of Dolores Roach Cold Case for 41 episodes and Crossing Jordan for 17. So she is one of those who's transitioned out of acting to go in front of the camera. Although, her acting credits stop at 2004, except for she has one 2011 guest spot in The Closer. So yeah, she's basically directed and produced for 20 years. I think that's kind of a shame. I think not that she's a bad director at all. Not judging that. I think she's probably good. I can't remember. We'll get to that.
If you have Apple, I recommend
It was more just, I really like her acting. I think she's a good actress.
Agreed.
It's kind of a shame that she stopped acting after this.
And you rarely hear her get shouted out as like the favorite Voyager character. I think she's so underrated.
When I said there's like 4 that are my favorites, she's one of them. I think Paris, Torres, the Doctor, and Janeway are my favorite characters in the series. 7 because of New Trek more so than the original.
Janeway and Tuvok, I think, are...
Yeah.
I like Tuvok. I don't know. I didn't put him up there.
He's sassy. He's sassy in ways that but yeah, you'll see it eventually down the line. But his eyebrow raise is iconic.
Oh, I agree with that. He's one of my top 2 favorite Vulcans in Star Trek for sure.
Oh, that's a good ranking.
I mean, don't ask me to put him above Spock. I'm sorry. That wasn't top 2.
That puts him above Savick and Sarek and
and Salar
and the Sea Lot.
and the woman that Saru married in Discovery.
Oh, and T'Pau.
And T'Pring, and there's a lot of Vulcans. I'm just saying.
T'Pring. Sorry, I was thinking of either version of T'Pring.
Below Torres is also my top 2 favorite Klingons. Worf. You gotta give Worf credit.
You put her above both the Duras sisters?
Yes.
Okay.
I do.
She's only half Klingon though, so.
Spock was only half Vulcan.
True.
So if we want to get into that.
Okay, alright, fair.
So Tuvok's in my top 1.5 favorite Vulcans.
There we go.
Well, while we're on Perv Corner, my special part of the podcast, I noticed that
It's
this
usually
very
just a
talented
picture of
director
them.
and producer, they still find a way to show her cleavage, just like the Duras sisters.
Winrich Colby, it was still that era of Trek, unfortunately.
Well, this is it's kind of jumping ahead, but I guess where I'm sort of in the perv corner, and also talking about the character for Taurus. This is actually sort of indirect. One of the Ocampa shows up with clothing for them.
Yes.
It just happens to have those heels for the zipper boots for.
I have a note specifically. Keith, did you notice the entire scene where he's talking to them about the clothing? Her eyes are on the boots.
I did not get
Every time they go back to Kim and Torres, her eyes are on the boots. And I'm thinking, she's like, why did you bring heels for me? I don't wear heels. Give him the heels. But seriously, the entire time Roxanne made the choice of my eyes are on the boots.
That's hilarious.
I think that was her disagreeing with the scene or the costume choices.
Okay.
And I agree with her disagreement.
Yeah.
At least that Klingon side of her, you know.
I would have liked to have seen Kim in the heels, is what I'm saying, honestly.
Although the Ocampa were kind of simple people, right? Or at least
yes.
in the eyes of the Caretaker, they were.
So they didn't. I think why they're simple is they don't invent their technology. They're given the technology and the food and the power by the Caretaker, and they just live.
Actually, that's the way I live. I'm given my technology.
It's a good life.
The Ocampa Doctor was played by Bruce French, best known for Jurassic Park 3.
As
everyone can agree, one of the top 6 Jurassic Park films to date.
He's got to have a ton of credits, right?
Mission Impossible 3, as everyone can agree, one of the top 6 Mission Impossible films. Are there 6? Or are there 7?
There's 8.
One of the top 8 Mission Impossible. I don't know that specifically. I think I saw Mission Impossible 3 back in the day. Fletch, the 1985.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Deeds.
One of the top 2 Fletch movies.
Yeah.
I think there's 3.
Or 3.
Yeah, he's got 154 acting credits.
Yeah,
Still active. He looked very familiar.
Yep.
And while we're talking about him, we should mention the nurse was Jennifer Parsons. Also looked familiar, best known for Never Been Kissed, Dragonfly, Remington Steele, and playing Miranda O'Brien in one episode DS9 we haven't seen yet.
Oh, wow.
I don't even remember who Amanda O'Brien is, but it's a season 5 episode. So she was most recently in 4 episodes of How to Get Away with Murder, so she hasn't been active in a few years, but she's still alive.
Do you think she's one of the O'Briens?
No relation.
Yeah.
No relation. Let's take a second here. Kate Mulgrew, they started filming this Voyager pilot without her. It was an actress named Genevieve Bujold.
Oh, yeah.
who was originally cast as Janeway, did, 1 to 3 days of filming? And then she decided it wasn't for her, and the production decided she's not for us.
Okay.
And so they called Kate Mulgrew in last minute to refilm scenes. There is footage, if you look online, of Genevieve as Janeway, and they definitely made the right decision.
Well, I think one of
Genevieve, best known for Dead Ringer's Coma, and of The 1,000 Days Murder by Decree, 77 acting credits.
So when they show the people kind of in the Matrixy thing on the beds, that's very Coma. In the movie, in Coma, they're harvesting organs and stuff.
I don't know if she filmed that scene.
Well, I don't know, but it's interesting. That's what I...
She filmed some bridge scenes, because that's the footage I've seen.
Okay. Yeah, it's one of the big shots in the movie poster is just people in that kind of state, and they're just keeping them alive to harvest their organs.
I haven't seen enough of her credits to judge whether she's a good actress or not. But I think for the role, Kate Mulgrew is ideal.
Yeah.
And she
real hard to
said like she had a hard time finding that character and fitting in.
She played
It's
it
hard
a
for me to
lot.
imagine that. I mean, it's just
She played it. You can watch. You can look.
Do
up on
watch it.
YouTube.
Check it out if you haven't
but
seen it.
She plays it a lot more. I would say Picard-like, where very stern, very
Yep.
straightforward, no nonsense, and it was like there's no bend to it. She was the captain, and that's it. And
The Mark scene would have fallen really flat with her,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, what I mean is, I can't. It's hard for me to imagine Kate Mulgrew not being suited for that role.
Oh,
It's
she's
just like-
perfect. Yeah, how they chose Genevieve over Kate Mulgrew, I don't know, but obviously the right circumstance happened in the end. So, I also will say right now, if Genevieve played Janeway, first of all, I don't know if Janeway stays all 7 seasons. Second of all, don't think Star Trek Prodigy is built around Genevieve's Janeway. Could be wrong, but Kate Mulgrew is just so perfect in that role.
Yep.
She does some great things. There's the one smirk I think we all laughed at.
Oh my God.
She was just kind of like, yep.
Oh,
And then-
the look back at like yep.
Sisko's my favorite captain, but Janeway's up there.
Yeah.
She is up there. Above Picard.
Oh, it was when Kess, I think, just said we're going on with defying the other Ocampa who didn't
Yeah.
want to help. He's like,
Yeah.
well, we're doing it anyway.
Yep. She's like, you get that? Since she's the first woman captain, I have a fashion note about her. Fashion. Her hair, the work she must have had to do on it, but then it gets disheveled during the battle.
Perfectly disheveled.
Yes.
But then seconds later, it's perfectly
Yeah.
back.
Well, no, if you notice when she's going to engineering, she's tucking it back into the bun.
Well, that still
They actually
it
show.
makes it even more of an amazing that she was able to put it back in that.
This could definitely be a recurring segment, the Janeway hair segment.
Yes,
Is that-
it changes styles a few times. She goes short for a while.
And at first I was admiring how perfect it was, put
Yeah.
together, and then I'm like, I want to see it disheveled, and then boom, they granted my wish.
I will say though,
Seconds later.
it's really rare on TV that you see her putting it back.
Yeah.
And granted, it may not have, probably not have been as perfect after she put
Well,
it
then
back.
a little
but the
bit
fact that we
later,
saw
there
it-
was one strand that was coming down, so
and that did it for you, didn't it?
it was
I did put a note about that. I think that the significance of that would be to that she has to project sort of the
Yeah.
authority and calm to the group. Like everything's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
I'm not. That would be.
she notoriously hated that hairstyle. 'Cause
Really?
It took a long time to get it up, and then it was apparently super uncomfortable,
I'll
like
bet.
migraine
Yeah.
worthy. Just
Oh.
pulling.
Just so tight.
Yeah.
I will say I like the long hair with the pony best of her hairstyles.
Later.
But I know a lot of people like the short hair, shoulder length.
I think
Tell you
it's
what,
the short for me.
Genevieve
Yeah.
Bujold could not have pulled that off.
That's the
Genevieve Bujold had more of a hairstyle like this.
yeah.
That was
Oh, there it is.
Genevieve.
I was like,
Yeah.
I couldn't.
the right way, the wrong way, the Jane way.
Yes, I'm partial to the bun. Actually, I don't know what. It's just something.
The bun's great too. I like the bun and the long hair better than that. That was my least favorite of the
I
three.
feel like even though she probably had this hairstyle the least amount of time throughout the whole series, I do feel like if you were to say picture Janeway in your head, I probably picture the bun.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what
Sure.
they
That's-
used
that's
for
hard to say.
Prodigy. That's why they
Probably-
used for Prodigy, which I think backs that up.
Yeah.
True too, but that's an interesting point about the Prodigy hologram.
Speaking of fashion, the Ocampo wearing those little neck things that also doubled as face masks, but none of them knew how to wear them
wow.
correctly around the sick patients because they weren't covering their mouths, or part of their mouths, but not their noses. What an interesting fashion choice that they made for the Ocampa.
Yep.
They did all have the ears, though. I don't know if you've noticed the ears.
Yeah.
They're not Vulcan ears. They're
No.
distinctly different.
Yeah.
I could kind of pick. I mean, it's like a comfort thing. I can kind of see like them I don't even want to say stimming necessarily, but it's just like that kind of, if you have a turtleneck, you kind of
Like
do
a
that with
turtleneck,
it.
yeah.
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 Instead it's mesh and see-through.
Yeah.
Neelix gets his outfit. The outfit I'm pretty sure he wears every episode for the next 7 seasons.
Yeah.
Out of the replicator, which
Yeah.
first of all, I think Neelix would get many different outfits. I think this is a clothing logistics budget. But also, the fact that they had many outfits and he picked this proves that in every episode of Next Gen and every episode of Deep Space Nine where they wear the stupid 2-color jumpsuits, they could have chosen that instead. And yet, they still wear the stupid 2-color jumpsuits. Wesley, Jake Sisko, all of them? Wrong. They should have chosen that suit.
That's just the style out near
Maybe
they're not imaginative like he.
maybe
So.
Jake's Stabbo girlfriend wouldn't have broke up with him if he wore the jumpsuit instead of the
Yeah.
2-color jump.
That's what you get for going to
he wore
Garrett's.
Oh.
That wasn't Garrick. That's Replicator. Garrick does better. I would have believed
He's like, I'll be damned if I'm gonna hear let you say that about
Do
Garrett's.
not besmirch Garrick's good name, Sean. That is the one thing that can get you disinvited from coming back. I'm kidding. Mostly.
Yeah, there's many more things.
I just love Garrick. He's one of my favorite characters of all of Trek. We're introduced to Kes at this point. The book goes out of their way. Again, female authors, not male, goes out of their way to describe Kes as the beautiful blonde ingenue that everybody is in love with the second they see her, from her beauty and innocence. I feel, yeah.
I mean,
Those words.
And she's
Basically,
how old again?
I was.
We'll find out.
2. She's 2. Kes is 2 years old.
The whole deal?
Well, she's, they mentioned in this episode that her species lifespan is 9 years.
Ah, okay.
I'm
forgot,
pretty
yeah.
sure we established very soon Kes is 2.
Okay.
That's not the creepy part because she's clearly full grown.
Yeah.
I hate the hair. I don't like short hair, obviously.
So,
I
it's
actually
fine.
like her
It's
hair.
fine because she's full grown. So, like, that Robin Williams movie where he's like a 6-year-old in an adult body?
Or-
Is that fine?
Or
No.
with Elizabeth Perkins.
Okay, okay.
No, it's because their species obviously matures emotionally and mentally.
Yes, emotional and mental maturity to match the physicality. So, yes.
I haven't quite got to there.
Kes is played by Jennifer Lean, best known for Star Trek Voyager, American History X, SLC Punk, and Phenom. She only has 13 acting credits.
Okay, wow.
And Voyager's number 10 of 13. I guess it's an animated show. She did 38 episodes of Men in Black, the series, after Voyager. She also did The Lion King, Simba's Mighty Adventure. And then she basically stopped acting.
Some theories about
She was in American History X also with Avery Brooks.
I will be honest, I never liked Kes or Jennifer Lean's performance of Kes.
Wow.
She's my least favorite Voyager main character, even though I'm really upset that Exo-6 said we're done with Voyager and they didn't make a Kes, because for completionist's sake, and I am a completionist, I need my Kes. But she is my least favorite of the main characters.
Like, I liked her in this
Always
episode,
was.
and then when I looked up the actress, I realized, she's the one that lots of people didn't care for. And
Her character.
Right.
She stayed
Yeah,
3 full
three
seasons.
seasons, yeah.
Well, she was in the first few episodes of season 4 as well.
Okay.
She stayed 3 full seasons
And
into
then-
season 4. She overlapped with
Some
7
new
of 9.
characters come- yeah.
They brought 7 of 9 at the beginning of season 4, and they did overlap for a couple episodes.
I don't want to bring it up just yet, but I mean, I can't remember. It was
I wouldn't have given you the specifics had you not already said
I
3.
already saw it. Yeah.
Yeah.
was I the one that found the article about why the theory about why she was
There is
Why she left?
stuff out there.
was
yeah.
was that me or was it? I can't remember, but maybe it's in the message. long
Might
time
have been
ago.
you,
I know.
because
Yeah.
I know I've read some things over the years, but why don't you
Yeah.
tell us?
Well, I mean, the one related to Harry Kim, like they had to make the decision.
Oh,
Didn't I do?
I think you did bring that up.
Okay.
Now that
Yeah,
sounds
I forgot
vaguely
about
familiar, but I don't remember.
Well, we'll wait.
Okay.
it'll come-
We'll wait till season 4
Yeah.
to
It's
talk
kind of
about
like
it.
I don't know if you guys remember Tasha Yar. It's kind of like that
She
conversation.
is. I like Tasha Yar better than Kes. I think I will go forward enough to say that Kes is my least favorite main character in every Star Trek.
Jeez, wow.
And yet I have a cousin who named their dog Kes after Kes.
Oh, wow.
I just did not like Kes.
She gets a little whiny. And like,
I did not like her from episode 1.
I like
I'll have
Kes.
to wait and see.
I like her in this episode at least. So
I don't like the damsel in distress stereotype. Don't like the whininess. I really, and this isn't her fault, this is the writing. It really rubbed me the wrong way when Kes and Neelix came to Janeway at the end, and Neelix's like, I'm going to do all these things for you. And Kes is like, and I'm going to be useful too. And I was like, oh! I mean, she's making a point of saying, I'm a colleague as well, and I'm not just here because of him, and yet it really read to me as, I'm just here because of him. And I didn't like that.
Well, I mean, she's 2. What experience really does she have to draw on and offer? Like, whatever mental maturity she might have, there just can't be a body of experience.
I will say the one positive about her in this episode is her escaping, showing the adventurous spirit, showing the explorer spirit. And we got that in that her saying, this is why I want to go with Voyager, and I bought that angle. And I also bought that Neelix is selling himself one way, she's selling herself another way, and I like the way she sold herself because she appeals to the spirit of Starfleet and Janeway. Still, though, I don't think they ever use her effectively. Maybe I'll be proven wrong in this rewatch as we watch her.
Did you see the whole series?
I saw about half of the series, mostly early episodes. So I probably see more Kes episodes than 7 episodes. Never ended up liking her. I was so relieved when they wrote her off the show. I was like, great. I'm very happy with this change. And I wasn't a 7 fan at first. It took me a long time to warm up to 7. So it wasn't like, oh, this woman's much better. It was like, oh, Catsuit, much better than her. No, it was...
Not even just that. I'm just like the concept of 7 and 9, the whole thing.
In that whole exchange where we meet Kes, we meet my Jabin, played by Gavin O'Harely, best known for The Descent Part 2, Willow, Superman 3, and Never Say Never Again. 55 acting credits, Descent Part 2 being his final one in 2009, though it looks like he's still alive. I will say I liked his introduction as a villain. He was clearly not dumb. Like, he's like, you can give us water. I don't want that. I want the technology that makes water.
No, I was wondering.
And he called for backup. The only dumb part, and maybe it's not so dumb, they destroy his big ship, and he's like, I called for backup. Well, we destroyed the array. Well, I'll see you some other day. It's like, no, why not go for the now? Like, this ship's Voyager's beat up. Like, we've been attacking. Bring in the backup now. Why give up at that point? That didn't make sense to me. But I thought there were a couple moves he made where I'm like, oh, this is a smart man. Even though I don't approve of his torturing Kes.
I thought the array, for being such a powerful thing, was blown up real easy.
It didn't have shields.
Well, I guess that makes sense. But it seems like it should, with all the other energy it has. But
maybe it had shields and they just dropped them, like, as it was dying.
Maybe the shields were part of his life force, and once he shriveled, it was vulnerable.
Maybe that.
Well, they did show the Kazon ship actually run into it. So ramming doesn't. Shields don't help you from ramming.
Also, I was going to say that he was about to destroy it anyway. He probably might have done something.
Yeah, you're right.
And I mean, it makes sense. I think that would be pretty demoralizing for him.
Yeah.
I mean, for all the time and energy he's been putting into it, like, I don't feel like doing this right now.
Yeah.
The incentive is gone, and these people are pretty powerful. That's
fair. Let's hit a couple of these other main characters we haven't talked about yet. Robert Beltran plays Chakotay, best known for Star Trek Voyager, the movie Nixon, 1995, where he played Frank Sturgis, one of the Watergate burglars, Lone Wolf McCabe, and Night of the Comet. He has 58 acting credits.
That's right. I used to love that movie, and I forgot that I made that connection at one point, like way back when I used to watch it.
He did a fan episode of Star Trek Renegades, but his acting does look like it kind of dried up until Star Trek Prodigy. And
Night of the Comet, he must have been...
He was in 11 episodes of Big Love? I don't remember him in Big Love, and I watched every episode of Big Love on HBO.
I just like that we finally got to Chakotay, because the transcript I usually use, that website is chakotay.net. It has all the Star Trek transcripts.
Yes.
So we finally got to him.
Oh, that's hilarious.
You know what? They said his name a lot in this episode.
They did.
So if it was a drinking game... Well, yes, I did it anyway, but...
Another behind-the-scenes note, he was originally going to be from the planet where Wesley transcended with the Traveler, and then they ended up deciding, nope.
Probably would have had to pay royalties.
Probably. You're probably right.
Oh, wow.
Your logic makes absolute sense. Kind of a dark note. Kes has the black eye and the cut lip when they rescue her from being tortured. The doctor just wipes it away with a little scanner. Does that mean it's really a lot harder in the 24th century to catch domestic abusers?
Oh my god!
Because
that
they
never
just
occurred to me.
They just heal it before they leave the house.
Do they have a little wand for my emotional trauma?
No, but like, you don't have to wear sunglasses. They just wipe the wand over you and you're healed.
It's easier because you don't have to just hurt them in places where the bruises don't show. Yes.
So. Well, I mean, we're also assuming they would have access to that, sort of thing for civilians.
I would think so. The domestic abusers get access.
Yeah.
There you go.
Sorry, that was a really cringy note, but I couldn't. But the way she looked like she was coming out of a domestic abuse situation. Anyway, they gave Neelix a phaser because at one point they're shooting After they crawl through the field and they're shooting the stone out, Paris goes, Neelix, use your phaser. I'm like, wait. He just used a phaser to blow up the water tanks. Why did you let him keep a phaser for this mission?
For that, he proved his tactical.
I thought
They gave a rifle to the convict on work release, so
I assumed that was
But he was a
personal.
violent offender.
I assumed that was Neelix's personal weapon, not something that they gave him. Because it was a different style. It looked like a little.
It looked like,
Yeah, I thought it was a
see,
phaser
I
first.
thought it looked like the next gen little palm version of the phaser.
It's like a different color and everything. I thought it was just. I thought he was faking it first, like a bluff.
Yeah.
The next gen has two sizes phaser. They have the palm size and then they have the big one.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was the palm size.
Maybe.
Yeah, it could be. I think Shane mentioned it sounded like a bowling alley.
Oh man!
Only when the rocks fell.
I'd go back and watch. I'll pop that up later in on Paramount and watch it again because 100% there was a bowling alley sound when the boulders fell.
the Wilhelm strike.
Pretty much, yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. I did have another alternate episode as all this was going down that what if Janeway, Chakotay, and Tuvok had died right there and Paris is the captain? It would have been a very different TV show.
Yeah.
Also, some things with Paris couldn't have happened if he was the captain. He would have really had to step up in a different way. I do feel like had this show been made a few years earlier, you got to have the white male captain. They could have done the same premise and just ended it with Paris in charge.
They probably would have gone home and just left the Ocampa.
But it wasn't Paris that said just go home and leave the Ocampa. It was Tuvok. Tuvok said prime directive applies. We don't need to worry about them. We should go home. And that was so interesting because I know we've got some big Tuvok fans in this group. And to just have him be that callous.
It's logical.
I mean, that is the
I
prime
hadn't
directive,
caught
which
that.
usually is quite callous.
That's one of Janeway's biggest complaints from the internet is that she plays fast and loose with the prime directive and
Like Kirk.
and other things.
You'll like Janeway.
Other things. But you gotta think though. I mean, they're so far out of the way that she kind of has to make snap decisions that like, is it worth following the prime directive out here? I've got to prioritize our crew. We don't have things going on that we don't have access to, resources and stuff as easily as back home. So, I mean, F the prime directive, I mean, if it needs to be.
Right.
They still try to follow it, but
First choice is right out of the gate. F it.
Yeah.
But then it's also, that first officer's job to present the alternative point of view, So I think Tuvok was within his rights to chime in there.
She for now, she just goes out of her way to disobey the prime directive. Like, whoa.
Another alternate episode, Tuvok shoves Chakotay over the stairs so that Tuvok can be first officer.
Yeah.
Obviously. Tuvok, played by Tim Russ, best known for Spaceballs, Star Trek Voyager, Star Trek Generations, which we just saw he was a lieutenant on the Enterprise B, Star Trek of Gods and Men, which was a fan-made thing. So all four of his best known are Star Trek. Obviously, he's done a little bit of New Trek. Steven hasn't seen it, so we won't talk about how. But he was also in Next Gen. We saw and DS9 as different characters. And I do think, even though in Generations it didn't feel like Tuvok, he had the rounded human ears, I feel like there is an episode of Voyager that makes a lot of fans think, myself included, that character on the Enterprise B was Tuvok. We just, for some reason, they missed his ears. Yeah. Because retroactively, we're going to find out he was in that era of Starfleet.
He was in disguise.
I think I said something like that at the time.
Yeah, could have been. We'll talk more about that when we get to the episode of Voyager, which I think is like season 5.
He was undercover at the start.
Yep.
So, Paris rescues Chakotay. Their dynamic is very well defined about why Chakotay would hate Paris. I think that's the best character development Chakotay gets is him defined by how he feels about Paris in this episode. Chakotay is one of the lesser developed characters in the show, unfortunately, because I really like Chakotay.
And he says, this is another Star Wars thing. He says, you owe me your life. Or
yes.
And
wrong tribe.
There is, and there is the thing that I think I can't remember if it's canon or not for Star Wars, but there's debate on it that Chewbacca owes Han and that's why he's like, all right, I'll put up with whatever. and then
Didn't they establish that in Solo? I thought.
Well, then there's the question though in Force Awakens, Chewbacca should be conflicted Like, I'm free!
Yeah.
Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen it.
Well, after all these
9-year-old
years, he has
movie.
strong Stockholm syndrome.
I would imagine by that point it's probably.
I cringed a little bit about the use of the term Indian, but we talked about Indian versus Native American when we
We did.
reviewed that episode next gen, so we won't do the whole debate again.
Well, actually, not beyond that. I forgot that they. I mean, why would they know that term, or what would it apply to wherever they are in space
Right.
or whatever?
They did have a cultural consultant on the staff in the writing room of Voyager to
Right.
kind of advise all the native material, and he
Yeah.
turned out to be a complete fraud.
Yes, he sure
Seriously?
did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Actually, for
wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
I mean, it's I want to say hilarious, but at the same time, that's amazing.
Terrible, yeah.
I do think it's interesting the Caretaker, who was this really advanced being, couldn't cure Kim and Torres, but 2 seconds in the Voyager sickbay and they're fine.
Well, oh
He
yeah.
just didn't have time, okay?
Well, he kept. That just.
See, I think an alternate
didn't last
episode.
long.
I think another alternate episode is Kim and Torres shouldn't have been healed, and they'd have to be spend episodes 2, 3 looking for a cure. Cure them just a couple episodes in. Also gives them another reason to go back to the Kazon and Okampa and stuff.
Right.
I mean, spoiler: Jabin will come back. The Kazon are not done in the series.
I like Gavin Hurley.
I'd forgotten.
Forgot about Superman 3.
We won't talk about how many seasons or episodes, but
He's
he will
Lena
be back.
Lang's terrible boyfriend in Superman 3. I forgot
Oh.
about that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were probably healed because something pattern buffer.
Oh no,
Oh yeah.
Jabin is only in one episode, or at least this actor is only in one episode. I swore the Kazon we see later, it must be a different,
There are recurring Kazon, just not from this
just not
episode.
him. Huh? I thought it was him.
Kulla is the main one.
Well, to me, all Kazon look alike.
How dare you?
Terrible.
I really thought the big arc that I'm thinking of with the Seska and all that, I thought that was Jabin.
You're probably out there warning people about the Ferengi, too.
I am.
Wow.
Again, a
Scurrilous.
beautiful
Scurrilous.
scene. Beautiful scene.
I mean, it was weird. I thought, like, man, that is slur. And then Quark jumped right in, like, yeah, that is. I was like, all right.
It was so beautifully and seamlessly played. Just
Yes.
the
Yeah.
whole speech. And
Like
the
any
pattern.
scene with Quark.
No, it's not for sale now.
Yeah.
Just-
Yeah, I really can't read like most of my notes. Other than I did think it'd be cool if they had destroyed the Maquis ship and they actually had 2 ships. But I guess Battlestar Galactica kind of did that, where you had the fleet of ships, the convoy.
Well, it was a tiny ship too, so it's not like it would have been super useful.
I did also wonder about that giant Kazon ship if they don't have any water. But again, the Battlestar Galactica kind of answered that with the water rationing in the first season. So yeah, had we not had Battlestar Galactica, I might have had a couple more problems with this episode. But we had Ron D. Moore over on Battlestar Galactica. We did not talk about, of the main actors, we did not talk about Ethan Phillips yet, who played Neelix.
Yeah.
He's best known for The Island, great movie, by the way, Inside Llewyn Davis, Irrational Man, and then Voyager. That's his 4th on IMDb. His most recent credit, besides 16 episodes of Avenue 5, which I have not watched, with Hugh Laurie. We should.
Oh.
He did an episode of Star Trek Very Short Treks, the animated
He pops up
shorts.
all over the place, and it's just like, huh,
I always recognize him out of makeup. He was in 2 episodes of Better Call Saul,
He did
4 episodes of Girls.
Yep.
Yep.
He played Hannah's dad's boyfriend. I think.
yeah, that's
I remember
the
that.
very first time I ever saw him out of makeup. I'm like, man, this dude looks so familiar. And then he started talking, like, that's Neelix.
You know? The Caretaker, as the old man, was played by Basil Langdon, best known for this one episode of Star Trek Voyager, one episode of a show called Omnibus, and then Twelfth Night, a TV movie in 1939, and The Man of Destiny, a TV movie in 1947. So this was his next to last TV credit, after guest starring in Empty Nest and
I
things
did
of
get
Murphy
excited.
Brown and Dark
Keith, you
Shadows.
probably did too when they actually said Caretaker.
Yeah.
We always get excited when they say the name of the episode.
Title drop.
No. I missed that was the name of the episode until I saw it on the book there. Even then I wasn't sure. If
You
that
were
was
probably listening for Pilot, but actually Caretaker.
The old woman who was offering sugar cookies was played by Angela Patton, best known for Groundhog Day, of course.
Oh yeah.
American Wedding, where she played the grandma. The American Pie series. Lolita and Flatliners. 96 acting credits, although it feels like more. She sadly passed away in 2016. Love her. In engineering, we met Lieutenant Carey, who only had like 2 or 3 lines, played by Josh Clark. He is a recurring character on Voyager. He's not important enough to have a best known for on IMDb, but he has 87 acting credits, which I feel like there's actors with far fewer credits that have a best known for. He did a couple episodes of Westworld not too long ago, episode of Fear the Walking Dead. And I have his autograph photo in one of my bins because he came to Starbase Columbus back in the day. And then the last IMDb thing I have is Jeff McCarthy, who played the Doctor, the human Doctor. Best known for RoboCop 2, The Devil All the Time, Cliffhanger, and Joker, where he played TV anchor opposite Joaquin Phoenix. He has credits after that as well. He was in an episode of Severance not too long ago. His voice was, anyway. So, yeah, I like Jeff McCarthy, but he looked familiar. Any other notes before we get to the rankings?
I have a lot. Actually.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I have a few quick ones.
Okay.
Another Warp Core breach. I feel like there's that happened.
It didn't breach. It just almost did.
Sorry, yeah.
That was to illustrate Janeway's scientific background. I feel like because she is a science officer. But
Yeah,
so-
I thought that too when she got down.
Yeah,
I'm like, okay,
yeah.
we're getting into.
it's like, oh, okay, she's smart as well.
Yeah, because at first I'm like, why is the captain down there? And then
Yeah.
It's not all fancy buns with her.
that's right. I talked a lot about when Riker would just stare at Picard's ear when he talked. In this, there were a lot of close talkers. This is the Seinfeld part.
Oh yeah, there was a scene.
real close.
Yeah,
made him
the
uncomfortable
staging.
with
Winrich Colby made them stand on top of each
At
other.
first, I thought it was just Paris, and I was like, no, everybody's doing it. I'm like, what is going on?
We didn't have widescreen shots yet.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess that makes sense. So yeah, I thought it's just like it's gonna tie in. At some point, they're gonna get breath mints out and be like, "Hey, you should have this." I always love seeing matte paintings, and there were a couple good ones in this episode. Yeah, that were appreciated. They say if he dies about the caretaker. Did we know it was who the caretaker was at that point? Because I didn't think we knew it was a he yet.
Are we even sure? I'm not even sure if the banjo player was him as much as it was
Right,
the personificator.
I meant-
Was it? I mean,
I mean, technically.
okay, yeah, I guess because
he was the
did,
blob.
like die
but-
in his
Yeah.
mind. Right.
Technically, all the holograms were him.
That's what I thought.
He just chose to be the banjo in the end.
Yeah.
So
He has enough energy to send him home, but he can play the banjo till the cows come home.
Right.
He can be like 20 different people just at the same time,
Yeah.
wasting energy there.
Baking.
Yeah.
I was happy to hear
It was weird he kept playing Dave Matthews, just saying.
That's why he was dying, actually. It was good to hear Majel Barrett once again. Continuing on.
Always.
Another, this is my final Star Wars note, I think. Chakotay does the Holdo maneuver pretty much, right? Other than he gets off the ship.
Oh.
He beams off.
Wow.
But it's the,
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't go into hyperspace, but he takes his ship. It's kamikaze or whatever.
Well, it was an option. I think if she
Yeah.
had an option too, she
Yeah,
would
if
have
she
said,
could have beamed
"No!"
out.
I did appreciate they went out of their way to never make it feel like we were actually going to kill Chakotay.
Yeah,
There wasn't the
yeah.
tension of, this is a suicide run. He was like, no, keep me locked in the transport.
Yeah. So I now we know where they got that from. Which makes sense that would be used all over different galaxies. My other episode was the array. I just like that name because it seemed like it should be something that's actually an array with assortment. So it's just I don't know. It's take your 5 characters you like and they go off on their own adventure. They're called the array.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then they each have their own names within the array.
Ah.
So that's mine.
One of them would have to be Ray.
Might be my alternate
A Ray.
series.
Ray's on the-
Raymond Ray.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Those are all my notes.
Keith.
Keith,
Let's see
you're up.
here. Bioneural. I think at the time I noted it made me think of Discovery.
Yeah.
There's something about the ship right there. God. There were a lot. I mean, there were quite a few notes about Tom Paris just because of the things I'd completely forgotten. Just his bearing in general just seems so off to me because I mostly remember from later seasons.
Yeah.
He's
He
completely
softens a
attitude.
bit, yeah.
And I said that he slid into Janeway's office with BKE, which is a big Kirk energy. Just that kind of like, whoa.
I was going to say big Riker energy, but
Yeah.
same thing.
So when they showed up on the holographic section, there's just like everybody had a tricorder.
Yeah.
Like
did.
I didn't know I never
Kids
noticed
these
them being
days.
that
That's
common before.
that's when I made the joke. They're just walking around looking at their screens.
Well, Keith, I think Keith makes a good point. When they go on away teams, they bring a phaser and a tricorder, but they were all taken without their, knowing they were leaving, so they should not have all had phasers and tricorders on their belts.
That wasn't even my point. It's just like usually
Oh.
it seems like it was like the shots usually have like maybe one person scanning for things. It's like everybody.
Rescue mission, they all have them, but
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
For some reason I guess
Who knew they had that big of a
yeah.
supply?
Yes, in
Yeah.
my
Oh,
head
yeah.
I thought of it being like just only one or
They've
two
got
per
5.
mission.
Yeah.
No, we've seen Data, Worf, and Riker beam over to an attack station, and they also have extras with them, and they all have tricorders out because they're looking for life signs.
Huh. Well, maybe it's just the way the shot looked for me.
Yeah.
see. Oh, right. So I'm surprised we didn't bring up. It just seemed very strange to me that the caretaker came up with that environment as something that they would be familiar and comfortable. Like this is the future. I mean,
Right.
why is it so dated and why
There was a deleted scene of one particular Maquis crew that they beamed over earlier who was obsessed with that time period.
I thought from the book or something. I was like,
No, the book didn't explain it.
But again, everything they put in this episode had to be like a really high priority for them just because there was so much. So they just badly wanted to do like a psychobilly romp for some reason with these guys. Like, why was that such a priority?
Oh, I think that was to save money because they had the costumes in the set already built for something else.
probably.
I think that was a cost cutting.
But it's just hilarious. Like, obviously the guy has some degree of telepathy about Earth culture, and he just decides that the absolute paragon of temptation is going to be deviled eggs.
Yes.
My next,
She should have had an apple. That would have at least done the biblical reference.
my next note was either get the corn cob or the stick. Of course, it's just maybe a stick or maybe a corn dog or whatever. Oh yeah, they mentioned a compression phaser. I don't think I've heard of that before. I wonder if that was supposed to be something that works against holograms.
Oh, I don't know.
Because they went back into the ship and said we're going to go back with compression phasers. Unless I misheard it.
I don't know.
Well, that's right. Put Tuvok meeting Neelix. It reminds me of me meeting pretty much anyone at a bar. It's just that whole kind of. Oh God! It's just the.
Who else is shipping Tuvok and Neelix at this point?
Oh yeah.
Tuvok.
I found my note that I put about the scene with Janeway that you guys mentioned before, or rather, Cass defying the rest of the Ocampa and Janeway giving that look. I put Captain Shadeway. It kind of looked like.
Nice.
But if only the caretaker had heard about the Prime Directive. As far as like whatever they did,
right?
You mentioning the caretaker reminds me of one more note, which was I thought this was going to be about wrestling.
Paraphrase something else here. I'm like wondering now in retrospect. It feels. I wish I'd had a better idea of what the caretaker's scope of power actually was.
Well, he was already dying, so his scope was already limited, right?
What I mean, like, how long had he been there doing that? Why? What were the limitations? Because I was wondering why he didn't try moving them to a different planet or something.
That's a good point.
Just seems.
Maybe we'll have to wait till we meet the female caretaker.
Maybe. If only that were possible. Probably won't happen. Won't pay off though.
It will pay off. But I will say, coming out of this episode.
And I don't want to say it pays off.
Okay. Coming out of this episode, there were two things I remember fans were excited about. Are we going to see the female caretaker? The answer is yes, eventually.
Because they wanted to see a girl.
Well, I'm just glad they followed up on it, right? And second, I know a lot of fans were like, they're in the Delta Quadrant, the Borg are from the Delta Quadrant. That takes a little longer to get to, but we will get to the Borg eventually.
Oh, don't tell him that.
Oh no, I knew.
I'm kidding.
Also, I do remember very specifically the trailer of Voyager before it premiered. The one exchange that stuck in my head was B'Elanna going, "Who is she to decide for all of us?" And Jakarta going, "She's the captain." That was in all the trailers before the show premiered.
Fantastic.
I loved it.
Oh yeah, I put the caretaker's death. When turning into that
rock.
It unlocked a new food option. Corn cobs, deviled eggs.
I'm pretty sure the caretaker's remains become important in the story where we find the female caretaker.
What
right?
do you think Quark could get for that? Station.
At least 3 Cardassian Lex.
And you made me think of something. Just a last note. Just I put the sickness didn't make enough sense because we started thinking about it. Like, what was that? Did it cause it? Was he misunderstanding something?
And why not heal it?
It was a pretty quick line, but basically, he basically impregnated them,
right?
And it was incompatible, and that's what was. Now, how did it cure itself?
The caretaker they should have just added one more line about the caretaker doesn't believe in abortion, and that would have solved the plot hole of why he couldn't cure them, but Janeway could.
Yeah.
So that lump on Kim's wrist is like a unfinished fetus?
Right,
yes. He has multiple fetuses all over him, and the doctor just aborted them all.
Yeah.
No, but seriously though, I mean, was that an actual impregnation, attempt, or was it just testing for compatibility, or?
It's not clear.
And when we see the real image of the caretaker, he's like a translucent beanbag chair.
Yes. Yeah.
How do you reproduce with that?
Yes.
Any way you want, I guess.
I mean, ask J.D. Vance. Who is by now our current vice president. Just kidding. Oh, God, I sure as hell hope not. Let's rank the episode. I vote worst episode of the series so far.
I go best.
Best?
Yes.
I put it right in the middle.
Yes. Middle basis.
We've only done that joke every single time we had a pilot. So, check the box. I said series just to be clear, not just season. But, you know.
That's I think you're thinking too far ahead. Here, it's being a little too. Yeah.
No.
That's interesting.
I think it was a good episode. I think it'll be ranked. Thinking back to season 1 and its strengths and weaknesses, I think it'll be towards the top at the end of the season. We'll see.
If we're ranking just the pilots, I'm going to go 5th out of 5 so far.
Best?
Wow.
5th out of 5? Worst?
Yeah.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Worse than original? The two? Are you doing the two
I'm
originals?
doing Cage, We're No Man. I'm
Okay,
doing
you're skipping the
Farpoint,
animated.
Emissary, and now Caretaker.
Okay.
I would rank it 3 after We're No Man and The Cage.
Okay.
Number 1.
Probably.
Well, you
But
haven't
that's
seen
I'm
them all.
biased. Yeah, I haven't seen
You saw
Deep Space.
Encounter Farpoint.
Yes.
You haven't seen The Emissary. Have you seen The Cage or Where No Man's Gone before?
A very long time ago.
The Cage is still one of my favorite episodes of Trek Total.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good.
Just, I don't know. See, ironically, since I'm forced to do this so often, I have a really hard time ranking things, especially when we go between series like that. It's all apples and oranges to me as far as.
I think I'm with you, Jimmy.
We're number 3?
Yeah, 3.
He came in with the original series bias.
Yeah.
I admit I've caught it. I don't know if it's how it was transmitted, but I've definitely caught the original series bias.
See,
I like the original series more than Next Gen. I really do.
from my perspective, I thought it had always been that way.
My opinion was based on the movies. I hadn't watched much of the show. So, who are we having a drink with for Caretaker? Start with Steven.
This will be no surprise that I started with the farmer's daughter.
But you changed, right?
I actually Kez, because I actually like her.
Oh,
I like her hair. I like, yeah. So
Okay.
And nothing else. Her hair and.
she seems. I'd like to get to know her better, even though apparently that's going to be a mistake.
Well,
No,
he likes the older men.
No. She does not get a Yar ending.
Well, yeah, that's right.
No tar monsters
Well,
destroy
that's
her. No, I would not say that's a bad thing. I'm going to say Paris because I think he was the best developed character in this episode. And a lot of his faults, he is not only willing to admit, but he's also like, yeah, I would have got away with it, but I had guilt. And it feels like he's a character that could have legs and go somewhere.
He leans into his.
From the pilot, I liked it. I get the sarcasm is a total get over it, quit being immature. But he's also very young. He's only had a couple of missions. Keith?
Probably Tuvok at this point because of just commiserating about just all the transitions he had to go through and the bathroom scene with Neelix. And
He needs a drink for that. That's a good point.
The expressions were just just keeping his. No.
Shane, who you having a drink with?
Oh, Neelix, because he could probably make some crazy concoction no one's ever heard of and get you there in one drink.
Good point. Sean.
Well, I'm really tempted to say Quark, but that feels like
Oh, that's a great answer.
yeah. But I'll have plenty of opportunities to drink with him on DS9, so I'll say B'Elanna.
Oh, does that mean you're coming back for some DS9 episodes here?
Oh, if you do one in person sometime, and I don't have anything else going on, it'd be down.
Okay, we rarely do them in person just because of scheduling. But
Sure.
Steven, who annoyed you?
Caretaker.
No hesitation.
Nope.
Fine, agreed.
No, it's one quick note. It's funny because she pronounced her name as B'Elanna.
Yeah.
I remember it was B'Elanna from everything else, but she kept saying B'Elanna.
She really hit it hard, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of those things where we ignore the actors. I'm going to say Rick Berman for the handful of complaints we've had about costuming and gender stuff. Yeah, I think this pilot could have been slightly better with a different producer head of Trek. He's not the showrunner. That was Michael Piller and then Jerry Taylor. But he was the franchise runner. I think without him, it would have been a little bit better. Keith.
It came down to being between some of the Okombens, like we can't do anything, or the table guys. The guys telling Harry about, oh my god, look at that.
That was Cabot and the Doctor.
Yeah.
That was 2 senior staff members. They just died.
Oh my god, look at what Paris did. You remember this guy?
I told you you'd find out.
Yeah. I'll go with those guys.
The Doctor and Cabot?
Yeah.
Fair. Sean, who annoyed you?
Well, I mean, Neelix's like only character trait is that he's annoying, but it's like you
That
just
doesn't
accept
really
it,
change.
you know? Yeah. But as far as just this episode goes, yeah, definitely the Caretaker and by extension the Ocampa. Just
Yeah.
I was actually going to say Neelix surprised me in him. I felt.
His one redeeming quality was when he was like, I'm going to go with the fool back to the caves.
But no, it just he seemed pretty steady throughout this one as far as like it's resourceful, and I didn't really find him annoying yet.
Okay.
It's just
Shane, who annoyed you?
Oh well, Neelix, but
Neelix with an asterisk.
specifically only because he didn't tell them why he was going back, and
Yeah.
like they were. I feel like they were on their way to a good negotiation until he was like, zap. I'm like, dude, they would have helped you, man.
Yep. So, we did drink with the original series. We added annoyance for next gen. With DS9, we kept annoyance and added shady. However, we did not want to get so mired in that now we have 4 or 5 things we're ranking for. So I messaged Steven and Keith ahead of time because they're the ones that always do it. And I said, let's ditch shady, because that's really DS9 specific. Let's keep drinking annoyance. But for the third category, I made 2 suggestions.
Yeah. I like
Steven liked who inspired you, who gets you to keep going. I preferred vote off the boat. Who was, if we ditch them, we get home quicker. So Keith is our tiebreaker. Are we doing inspiration? Are we doing positive or negative? Inspiration or kick off the boat?
I was going to say.
I mean, we could do both, but I don't want to weigh down the rankings too much.
Yeah, my suggestion was going to be who is the closest to getting home, which makes absolutely no
they
sense.
all.
Yeah, right. That was the joke. Inspiring feels a little better because vote off the boat is like annoying anyway. So
I appreciate and agree. Yes, let's do inspiring. Who inspired you this episode? We're gonna start with our guests first, just to change it up. Shane, who inspired you?
No time to think. I mean, Janeway.
I was gonna say you've thought about this episode for years.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Janeway. She's inspiring. She is in an impossible situation that I'd argue that almost no captain has ever been in this dire of a situation before that hasn't been, undone through space magic.
Yeah.
But like,
so end of the episode. We're done. Yeah.
She made quick, efficient decisions, and she's like, I will get you home. She said that to multiple people, and so it's very inspiring, I think.
Sean.
I guess give me Paris, because at the beginning of the episode, it seems very likely that he's a total D-bag, the way he's talking to Stabby and stuff, but by the end, he's risking his life to save a guy that doesn't even like him. It just seems like he's the kind of guy that maybe, being the Admiral's son, just...
Admiral.
Maybe he just had too heavy expectations, but when the stakes are high and the chips are down, he's really made us some stronger stuff.
True. Keith.
I was thinking Kess actually.
Okay.
There's something. I think some of the reasons were already given as far as the spirit of exploration she already had, and trying to what are the words I'm looking for? She was questioning the things that they've been taught, essentially, at least to find out for herself and trying to explain to them better ways they could be doing things, and just something about her bearing.
Great call.
Yeah, thank you.
I like it. I'm gonna jump on Shane's answer. I think Janeway was very inspiring, very good leader in this episode. Showed her captain's stripes without. I do think this was more Paris's episode than Janeway's in terms of leads, but I think the bits they gave Janeway really hammered home why this is the captain we have for this series, and I really like Janeway. Steven.
I'm Paris also. Any guy who's doing the Riker Kirk thing.
But he did go down to the root cellar. Riker and Kirk would have went down to the root cellar, right?
Yeah, that's true.
You would have gone down to the root cellar.
I was already. Yeah.
I would have. I would have too.
She wouldn't even bother with me. She's like, I don't even have to work at this one.
You don't even need to go to the root cellar. Just go behind the bush.
Yeah.
I put Zoey down for Harry Kim. Is that correct, Zoey? He was the character that inspired you. Your favorite character. Okay, she's nodding. I asked her several times during this proceedings if she wanted to talk more, and she said no. So I think she's intimidated by the group. Next week, Parallax, and I'm going to read the short and long synopsis because I feel like the short sucks. Tensions rise between the merged Starfleet and Maquis crews. when they discover another ship caught with a quantum singularity, only to find there's more to the ship than it seems. Longer description. Voyager is set a course for home. Repairs are underway, and it's time to pick personnel to fill vital crew positions. Tempers are turbulent as the Starfleet crew absorbs the undisciplined Maquis. Neelix finds his place as chef, and Kess builds the aeroponics bay. I don't even remember the aeroponics bay. Paris does double duty as con officer and field medic. Chakotay recommends Torres for chief engineer, but Janeway isn't convinced she can exhibit the professionalism of a Starfleet officer. Any doubt if Torres ends up as chief engineer, Steven?
No.
Okay. All of us put opinions aside when Voyager mounts a rescue of a ship caught in quantum singularity, only to find the ship in distress is Voyager itself.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. I will say that.
We also introduce Seska next episode.
Nice.
And Carrie will be back.
We're on Voyager for like 4 episodes, and then...
Only 2.
Oh, and then we get back to...
And then we do DS9 and go back and forth again. Until then, live long.
In this galaxy, and far, far away. And prosper.
No Star Wars on my podcast, Steven.
I forgot I had one more.
It's All Been Done presents.
Who's got the time?